The first shot tore through the morning stillness like a thunderclap, sending birds scattering from the cottonwoods. Cole Walker dropped to one knee, his weathered hand instinctively finding the Colt 45 at his hip. The second shot kicked up dirt just inches from his boot. "Sarah!" he bellowed, charging toward the small homestead, where smoke now curled from a broken window. At 52, Cole Walker wasn't young anymore, but decades on the frontier had kept him lean and dangerous. His gray eyes still eagle-sharp, his movements precise as he zigzagged toward cover. 20 yards to the cabin, 15, 10. The third shot never came. Instead, a tall figure burst from the cabin's rear door, impossibly tall, draped in what looked like Apache garb, but wrong somehow, too theatrical. The figure mounted a waiting horse and kicked it into a gallop, heading for the ridge. Cole raised his Colt, hesitated for a split second, then lowered it. Too far for accuracy, and he needed to check on his sister's family. "God, no," Cole whispered as he pushed through the door. The smell hit him first, metallic primal, then the silence. No crying children, no movement. Sarah lay near the hearth, her blue dress darkened with crimson eyes still open but growing distant. Nearby, her husband Tom's body was sprawled awkwardly across the threshold to the bedroom. And the children. Cole fell to his knees beside his sister, cradling her head. "Sarah, stay with me. Who did this?" Her lips moved, voice barely audible. "Apache. Not Apache. He knew. Our names." "What do you mean, who was he?" Her bloodied hand clutched his sleeve with surprising strength. "Necklace. Silver. Buttons." "Shh, don't talk. I'll get help." But they both knew it was too late. The nearest doctor was half a day's ride. "Promise me?" Sarah's eyes locked onto his with desperate clarity. "Find him. Justice, not vengeance." "I will, I swear it." Cole's voice broke. "I'll find whoever did this." Her grip slackened. "Protect Joshua." As Sarah's final breath rattled, Cole spotted something glinting in the dirt by the door, a silver button torn from the attacker's clothing in the struggle. Engraved on its surface were two letters, JH. Cole pressed it into his palm until it bit into his flesh, then slipped it into his pocket. Rising slowly, he moved to check the bedroom, steeling himself for what he'd find. The children's bodies lay like broken dolls, Michael 8 and Rebecca 6. But little Samuel, just 3 years old, was the worst. His tiny form had been positioned deliberately by the window as if to look out. A staged scene. Not the chaotic violence of a raid, but a calculated message. Cole had seen enough killing in his 40 years as a scout bounty hunter and occasional army tracker to recognize the difference. He gathered the bodies, laid them with care on the beds, and covered them with sheets. Only then did he allow himself to sink to the floor back against the wall and release a single guttural sob that held years of buried grief. By nightfall, he had buried his family beneath the old oak where the children used to play. No marker yet that would come later when he returned. For now, there was only the oath he whispered into the gathering darkness. "I will find who did this. I will uncover the truth, and I will ensure justice is done, no matter the cost." 3 months later, dust coated Cole Walker's boots as he rode into Copper Creek, a mining settlement turned cattle town in Arizona territory. The place had the temporary feel of most frontier towns, as if a strong wind might blow it all away, leaving only the saloon and jail standing. Both built of stone, both doing steady business. Cole tied his horse outside the Copper Queen saloon, adjusting his hat against the late afternoon sun. Inside the room, dimmed to lantern light, conversations dropping to a hush as the newcomer entered. Cole took in everything: the card games, the tired-looking women, the nervous bartender. Most importantly, the large man holding court at the far table. "I'll give my ranch to whoever tames the Apache giants." The big man roared with laughter, slapping his massive belly as the entire saloon erupted in hysterics. 7 feet tall, both of them. Sisters who've sent more men to their graves than cholera. One, Jim Hendress, wealthy rancher bank owner and self-appointed king of Copper Creek. Cole had spent 3 months learning everything about him, tracking his movements, his business dealings, the range of his influence. "Those aren't women," one grizzled rancher gasped through laughter. "They're demons in human skin," Cole ordered. Whiskey, and found a corner table watching Hendress through the smoky air. The rancher was putting on a show, but there was something calculated in his eyes, a predator's assessment hiding behind the jolly facade. Nobody's ever even gotten close to them, Hendricks continued, his voice dropping theatrically. They move like shadows, strike like lightning, and disappear like smoke. Any fool thinks he can tame those monsters deserves what's coming to him. Cole sipped his whiskey, letting the conversation wash over him. He'd heard variations of this tale for days now, the legendary Apache sisters who'd been terrorizing the territory. Maria and Carmen dos Santos, half Apache, half Mexican giantesses, who captured and killed white settlers with brutal efficiency. The townsfolk spoke of them with a strange mixture of terror and fascination. No one had a consistent story about what these women actually looked like beyond their unusual height, but everyone knew someone who'd barely escaped their clutches. Patterson family was last, said a cowboy with a drooping mustache. Found him 2 weeks back. Wasn't just killing. It was a message. He crossed himself. Bodies arranged like some kind of ritual. Cole's eyes narrowed slightly, just like Sarah's family. That makes, what, 12 families in 4 months? Asked an older man in a shopkeeper's apron. 14, corrected Hendricks. McKinney's and the Swenson place got hit last week. Army's useless, afraid to go into those mountains. And that reservation agent, all talk, no action. Hendricks leaned forward, lowering his voice to a theatrical whisper that nonetheless carried throughout the room. Word is anyone those giants take alive comes back. Wrong. Can't speak, can't sleep, just stare at nothing all day. Cole had heard enough. He drained his glass and stood the sudden movement, drawing all eyes. I'll do it. The words fell into sudden silence like stones into still water. What did you say, stranger? Hendricks' face showed genuine surprise. Cole stepped forward, spurs jingling softly against the floorboards. I said I'll do it. I'll tame your Apache giants. Laughter erupted again, but nervous this time with an edge of uncertainty. Hendricks sized him up. And who might you be? Name's Cole Walker. Recognition flickered across several faces. Even in these parts, that name carried weight. Walker, the manhunter. Hendricks' joviality faltered slightly. Been called that, Cole acknowledged, among other things. Well, Mr. Walker. Hendricks recovered quickly, spreading his arms wide. You heard my offer. Bring those Apache witches to heel, and my ranch, 10,000 acres of prime grazing land, is yours. Cole held the rancher's gaze. Your offer's accepted. He placed his empty glass on the table with deliberate care. But I'll need information. What kind of information? Hendricks asked, a new wariness in his eyes. Everything you know about these giants, where they've attacked, when, how they operate. Planning to hunt them down? The bartender looked horrified. Men have tried. None came back. Not hunt, Cole corrected. Understand. Hendricks' face showed momentary confusion, then amusement. Understand? They're savages, Walker. Animals. There's nothing to understand. Cole's expression remained impassive, but something cold flickered in his gray eyes. Everything can be understood, Mr. Hendricks, even savagery. As Cole turned to leave, Hendricks called after him, You're either the bravest man I've met or the biggest fool. Cole paused at the door. Sometimes there's not much difference. Outside, the dusty main street had taken on the golden hue of late afternoon. Cole untied his horse, patting the animal's neck absently as his mind worked. The saloon's conversation had confirmed several of his suspicions, but raised new questions. Movement caught his attention, a young man watching him from the shadow of the general store. Something in his stance, the way he held himself. Been a long time, son, Cole said without turning fully. Joshua Walker stepped into the light, 25 years old, and the spitting image of his father at that age, same lean build, same determined jaw. Only his eyes were different, dark like his mother's, and currently filled with undisguised anger. 5 years, Josh said flatly. That's how long since you bothered to visit. Cole nodded, accepting the rebuke. Your mother, dead, 3 months ago, consumption. Each word delivered like a bullet. Cole removed his hat, genuine grief crossing his weathered features. I'm sorry, Josh. I didn't know. How could you? You were too busy tracking bounties to care about your own family. There was more than accusation in Josh's voice. There was pain, old and deep. That's not fair, Cole said quietly. I sent money. We didn't need your money. Josh's voice rose, drawing glances from passersby. We needed you, but you were always chasing the next reward and the next killer. He gave a bitter laugh. And now here you are chasing Apache giants for a ranch. Some things never change. Cole replaced his hat, eyes darkening. What are you doing here, Josh? My job. Josh tapped the leather satchel slung across his shoulder. I work for the Chicago Tribune now, covering frontier stories. Pride and concern warred in Cole's expression. Journalists' dangerous work out here. So is bounty hunting, but that didn't stop you. The accusation hung between them, decades of absence and misunderstanding made tangible in the dusty air. Cole sighed. I've got business to attend to. Where are you staying? Whitfield's boarding house. Not that it matters to you. Josh turned to go, then paused. I heard what you said in there about the Apache women. You're not really going after them, are you? It's complicated. It always is with you, Josh shook his head. Whatever you're planning, I want the story. This isn't a story, son. It's... Cole trailed off, uncertain how to explain. It's what... Cole chose his words carefully. A promise I made to someone. Something in his tone made Josh look at him more closely. What kind of promise? The kind that can't be broken. Cole mounted his horse. We'll talk later. There are things you should know. As he rode toward the sheriff's office, Cole felt his son's eyes on his back, judging, questioning. Reopening wounds that had never fully healed. Complications he hadn't anticipated. But the silver button weighed heavy in his pocket, and Sarah's final plea echoed in his mind. Find the truth. Ensure justice. Protect Joshua. One promise he'd already failed. The other two he intended to keep no matter the cost. Sheriff Thomas Wilson looked every day of his 65 years with a face weathered by sun and worry into deep crevices. His office smelled of gun oil, coffee, and resignation. Cole Walker, he said, recognition darkening his already somber expression. Heard you were dead. Not yet. Cole settled into the chair across from Wilson's desk. Though some have tried. What brings you to my town? Not bounty hunting, I hope. Got enough troubles. Information, Cole said, about these Apache giants everyone's talking about. Wilson's face closed like a book. What about them? I need to know everything. Attack patterns, locations, survivors' accounts. Everything. The sheriff leaned back, studying Cole with narrowed eyes. Why planning to collect Hendriss's bounty? Let's just say I have questions about these attacks. What kind of questions? Cole met the older man's gaze steadily. The kind that might make powerful men uncomfortable. Understanding dawned in Wilson's eyes. He rose slowly, checking that the door was firmly closed before returning to his desk. From a lower drawer, he withdrew a leather folder. Been keeping my own records, Wilson said quietly. Things don't add up. He spread a map across the desk, showing the territory around Copper Creek. Red X's marked attack sites. 14 homesteads hit in 4 months. All small family farms. All recent settlers. Cole studied the pattern. All refusing to sell to Hendriss. Wilson's eyebrows rose. You've done some homework. Some, Cole acknowledged. Enough to know Hendriss has been buying land cheap from scared settlers. He's not the only one. Wilson tapped several locations on the map's eastern edge. Eastern investors, railroad interests, mining companies. Lot of money circling these parts lately. Cole traced the pattern of attacks. These follow the old Apache Trail. Yes and no, they follow what white folks think is the Apache Trail. Wilson's weathered finger traced a different line. Real trail's 15 miles west. Any actual Apache would know that. Cole's expression remained neutral, but his eyes sharpened with interest. Survivors described the attackers. That's another thing. Wilson rifled through papers. Descriptions don't match. Some say the women are 7 feet tall. Others say closer to 6. Some say they speak Spanish. Others say Apache. Some say they have war paint. Others say not. Witnesses often differ, plus, not this much. Wilson shook his head. And then there's the physical evidence. He pulled out a sketch of a horseshoe print. Found this at the Patterson place. Iron shod, Spanish colonial style. Cole removed the button from his pocket, placing it beside the sketch. Found this at my sister's homestead, 3 months ago near Fort Bowie. Wilson picked up the button, examining the JH engraving. Jim Hendriss. Possibly. Your sister's family was killed by these giants. Cole's jaw tightened. by someone wanting me to think they were. Wilson whistled low. That's a serious accusation, Walker. I'm not accusing yet, just investigating. Jim Hendris is the most powerful man in 3 counties, owns the bank half the businesses, has the territorial governor's ear. Wilson returned the button. You'll need more than this. That's why I'm here. Cole pocketed the button. I need access to your reports. Witness statements. Evidence. Wilson hesitated, then nodded. On one condition. Whatever you find, you bring to me first. No vigilante justice. Agreed. And watch your back. Walls have ears in Copper Creek. Wilson gathered his papers. I've been trying to piece this together for months. Something bigger's happening here, Walker. Something that scares me more than any Apache giant. As Cole left the sheriff's office, the setting sun painted Copper Creek in blood-red hues. Across the street, a weathered sign creaked in the evening breeze, Hendris Banking and Land Company. In the window stood Jim Hendris himself, watching Cole with an expression that belied his jovial saloon persona, calculating cold and unmistakably concerned. Cole tipped his hat in acknowledgement, a gesture both courteous and challenging. Hendris's face darkened before he stepped away from the window, letting the curtain fall. The game had begun. Dawn was just breaking when Cole entered Emerson's general store, startling the proprietor who was still setting up for the day. Need supplies, Cole said without preamble. He slid a list across the counter. Everything on here, by noon. Old Emerson adjusted his spectacles, scanning the unusual requests. Mirror fragments, colored glass beads, silver jewelry. Everything on the list, Cole repeated, placing gold coins on the counter. Discreetly. This for hunting those Apache women? In a manner of speaking, Emerson counted the coins. Some of these items, the red cloth, the silver work, I'll need to order from. You have them. Cole's tone left no room for argument. Back room, shipment that came in last week from Santa Fe. Emerson's surprise confirmed Cole's intelligence was accurate. How did you noon? Cole interrupted, turning to leave. And I'll need a pack horse. Outside, the town was coming to life. Shopkeepers opening for business, ranch hands stumbling, bleary-eyed from saloons. Josh Walker waited beside Cole's horse, looking like he hadn't slept. We need to talk, Josh said. Cole sighed. Not now, son. Yes, now. Josh stepped closer, lowering his voice. I know about Aunt Sarah. Cole froze. What do you know? That she was killed 3 months ago. That you were there. Josh's eyes searched his father's face. That you think it wasn't Apache raiders. Who told you this? I'm a journalist. I have sources. Josh's expression softened slightly. Why didn't you tell me she was my aunt? Those were my cousins. Cole closed his eyes briefly, memories of the burial flashing through his mind. I was going to. Tonight. Is that why you're randomly here? Not for Hendris's ranch, but because of Aunt Sarah. It's complicated. Stop saying that. Frustration colored Josh's voice. I'm not a child anymore. If you're hunting her killers, I want to help. Cole studied his son, seeing not the angry young man, but the determined boy he'd once been. So much like his mother, stubborn, principled, fearless. This could get dangerous, Cole warned. So can journalism. Josh patted his satchel. I've covered mining disputes, railroad fights. I can handle myself. Before Cole could respond, a commotion erupted from the far end of the street. A wagon rolled in, the driver shouting for the doctor. In the back lay a man, his clothing torn and bloody. Another survivor, someone whispered as a crowd gathered, found him at the Weber place. Cole and Josh exchanged glances, then moved toward the growing crowd. Dr. Franklin, a harried-looking man in his 40s, was already examining the victim. Apache attack, the wagon driver was explaining. Found him hiding in the root cellar. Rest of the family's gone. The injured man's eyes were wild with terror, his mumbling incoherent. As Dr. Franklin tried to calm him, Jim Hendris pushed through the crowd. Sheriff Wilson close behind. Another one, Hendris announced, voice pitched to Carrie. How many more families must die before someone takes action? Several angry murmurs rose from the crowd. Wilson tried to restore order, but Hendris was building momentum. The army does nothing. The territorial government does nothing. Must we wait until these monsters reach Copper Creek itself? Cole moved closer to the injured man, studying him with professional detachment. The wounds were real enough, deep cuts along the arms and chest, but something about them struck Cole as odd, too regular, almost deliberate. The man's terrified gaze locked onto Cole. Giants, he whispered hoarsely. Women, tall as trees. Took Nathan. The children. What did they look like? Cole asked quietly. Faces, painted, spoke, strange words. Apache words. The man nodded frantically. And English. They knew our names. Cole's interest sharpened. They spoke English and knew your names. Before the man could answer, Dr. Franklin intervened. That's enough questions. This man needs rest. Hendress placed a paternal hand on the survivor's shoulder. You're safe now, Weber. Copper Creek takes care of its own. As the doctor's assistants carried the injured man away, Josh whispered to Cole, You saw his wounds. Cole nodded slightly. Too precise. Self-inflicted, possibly or staged. Josh looked troubled. Why would anyone to spread fear? Cole interrupted. Fear drives people to sell cheap, to abandon claims, to seek protection from men like Hendress. They watched as Hendress continued addressing the crowd, his performance, masterful, stoking fear while positioning himself as protector and savior. He's good, Josh admitted grudgingly. Too good, Cole agreed, and getting better with practice. As the crowd dispersed, Cole noticed an old man watching from the alley beside the gunsmith's shop. At least 70 with a wild white beard and leathery skin that spoke of decades in the sun. What caught Cole's attention wasn't his appearance, but his expression, not fear or anger like the rest of the crowd, but skepticism. Their eyes met briefly, the old man giving an almost imperceptible nod before disappearing back into the alley. Who was that? Josh asked, following Cole's gaze. Not sure, Cole murmured, but I intend to find out. Later that afternoon, Cole found the old man drinking alone at a corner table in the Copper Queen. Up close, his face was a roadmap of scars and wrinkles, his faded blue eyes still sharp despite the whiskey before him. Joseph Grizzly, the old man introduced himself, motioning for Cole to sit. Though most folks just call me Grizzly Joe, been expecting you. Have you now? Joe chuckled, a sound like leather creaking. Word travels. Cole Walker, the famous manhunter, comes to town asking questions about Apache giants. Seems a bit beneath your usual quarry. Cole said nothing, studying the old man. I rode with the 5th Cavalry, Joe continued. 30 years in Apache country. Married a Chiricahua woman. Lived with her people for a time. He took a sip of whiskey. So when I hear stories about 7-foot Apache warrior women terrorizing settlers, I get curious. What do you make of these giants? Joe's weathered face cracked into a grin. Same as you, I reckon. Horse shit, but interesting horse shit. Cole allowed a small smile. The attacks are real enough. Oh, people are dying, sure enough. But Apache giants. Joe shook his head. I know every band, every clan, from here to the Gila River. There are no giantesses. Then who's killing these settlers? Joe leaned forward, lowering his voice. You ever heard of false flag operations? Walker Army used them during the Apache Wars. Dressed soldiers as raiders attack Mexican villages, blame the Apache. Creates hatred, justifies military action. You think someone's doing that here? Why? Look around you, Joe gestured expansively. Territories changing, railroad coming through, mining interests, land speculation. A lot of money to be made if you control the right parcels. Cole nodded slowly. And if those parcels happen to be homesteaded by families who won't sell, create a threat, drive them out, buy cheap. Joe drained his glass, tale as old as civilization. You've shared these thoughts with Sheriff Wilson. Wilson's a good man in a bad position, limited by politics jurisdiction. Joe studied Cole carefully. You, on the other hand, operate outside such constraints. I'm just here for information, Joe. Bullshit. Joe's eyes twinkled. You're hunting something. Or someone. Cole hesitated, then placed the silver button on the table. Joe examined it, whistling low. Jim Hendress himself. You believe he's behind these killings? I believe he's connected. My sister's family was murdered 3 months ago, made to look like an Apache raid. Understanding dawned in Joe's eyes. And you found this at the scene? Cole nodded, along with horseshoe prints matching those found at other giant attack sites. Joe handed back the button. Hendris is dangerous walker, connected. If he's orchestrating these killings, he's not working alone. I need to know how the Apache really operate, Cole said. Their signals, their customs, things only someone who's lived with them would know. Joe stroked his wild beard thoughtfully, planning to make contact with actual Apache. That's either very brave or very stupid. I need to separate fact from fiction. Find out if real Apache know anything about these attacks. There are bands in the White Mountains, peaceful, still following the old ways. Joe's expression grew serious. But they won't talk to just anyone. You'd need to approach correctly, show proper respect. That's why I need your help. Joe studied him for a long moment. This isn't about Hendris's ranch offer, is it? No, Cole admitted. It's about justice for my sister, for all the families killed to feed someone's greed. Joe nodded slowly. Meet me behind the livery at midnight. Bring whatever supplies you have gathered. He rose, adjusting his battered hat. And Walker, come armed. Not for the Apache, for whoever's watching us right now. Cole didn't turn to look, but he'd sensed it too, eyes on them from across the saloon. As Joe left, Cole caught the reflection in the bar mirror, one of Hendris's men trying too hard to appear disinterested. The game was escalating faster than he'd anticipated. That night, Cole slipped away from his room at the hotel, avoiding the man Hendris had stationed across the street. He found Josh waiting in the shadows beside the general store. Going somewhere without me? Josh asked. Cole sighed. This isn't your fight, son. It became my fight when Aunt Sarah and the kids were killed. Josh's expression was determined. Besides, you need me. For what? Documentation. Josh patted his satchel. Evidence, witness testimony, the kind that holds up in court. Cole started to argue, then reconsidered. Josh was right, this wasn't just about vengeance. It was about justice, which required proof. Stay close. Do exactly as I say. Josh nodded, following as Cole led the way through back alleys to the livery stable. Grizzly Joe waited with 3 horses, Cole's mount a pack horse loaded with supplies, and a sturdy bay. Brought company, I see, Joe commented, eyeing Josh. My son, Cole said. Josh Walker, journalist. Joe's bushy eyebrows rose. Journalist, that's a dangerous occupation these days. So people keep telling me, Josh replied dryly. He's documenting everything, Cole explained. Building a case. Joe nodded approvingly. Smart. But it complicates things. He handed each of them a small bundle. Put these on over your clothes, and the bundles contained simple Apache-style garments, deerskin vests, cloth headbands. Disguise, Josh asked. Protection, Joe corrected. We're heading into disputed territory. Army patrols shoot Apache on sight. Raiders shoot white men. These markings identify us as neither and both. As they dressed, Joe explained their route north into the White Mountains, following game trails rather than established paths. They would avoid military outposts and settlements, traveling by night when necessary. There's a band led by an elder named Taza, Joe said. His people remain neutral in the conflicts. If anyone knows the truth about these giants, it would be him. How far? Cole asked. 3 days if we push hard, 4 if we're cautious. And if we're followed, Joe's leathery face hardened, then we might not make it at all. They mounted up, leading their horses quietly through town until they reached the northern outskirts. Only then did they spur the animals to a trot, putting distance between themselves and Copper Creek under the silver light of a half moon. None of them noticed the lone rider watching from the ridge or saw him turn back toward town once they'd passed. By morning, Jim Hendris would know exactly which direction they'd gone. An hour before dawn, they made camp in a sheltered arroyo. As Josh tended the horses, Joe pulled Cole aside, unfolding a worn piece of parchment. Found this on a dead courier last month, he said quietly. Mexican fellow carried messages between Hendris and someone in Santa Fe. The parchment contained a crude map with markings in Spanish. I don't read Spanish, Cole admitted. Neither do I, but I recognize this. Joe's gnarled finger tapped a symbol near the mountains. Apache sign for sacred place. And this one, he indicated another marking, means yellow metal. Gold. Joe nodded. There's an old legend. Apache holy place hiding a mother lode bigger than the Comstock. Most think it's just a story. You think Hendris found it? I think someone convinced him it's real. Look here. Joe pointed to more markings. These are homestead locations. all attacked in the last 4 months. Cole studied the map intently. They form a perimeter around this area. He tapped the center of the marked territory, exactly like someone's clearing a buffer zone, keeping people away from something. But why the elaborate Apache giant story? Why not just hired guns? Joe smiled grimly. Because guns attract attention. Army investigations, territorial marshals. But Apache raids, those are expected. Accepted. No one looks too closely. Cole folded the map carefully. This changes things. We need to— A low whistle from Josh interrupted them. He pointed urgently toward the ridge above the arroyo. Cole's hand moved to his rifle, but Joe shook his head, making a subtle gesture. Wait. Silhouetted against the pre-dawn sky stood a lone figure on horseback. Too distant to identify, but unmistakably watching them. After a long moment, the figure raised what appeared to be a mirror, flashing light 3 times in their direction. Apache signal, Joe whispered. Non-hostile approach. Friendly, Cole asked. Let's find out. Joe took a small mirror from his pack, sending back 2 flashes. The figure disappeared from the ridge. Minutes later, hoofbeats approached from the arroyo's entrance. Stay calm, Joe warned. No sudden movements. The rider who appeared was not what any of them expected. A woman perhaps 70, dressed in traditional Apache clothing, but with a distinctly regal bearing. Her face was deeply lined, her silver hair braided with turquoise beads. She rode without saddle or bridle, controlling her paint pony with subtle knee pressure. Elena, Joe breathed in recognition. Medicine woman of the Warm Springs Band. The woman reined her pony to a stop, studying them with penetrating dark eyes. When she spoke, her English was accented but clear. Joseph Grizzly, many winters since you walked Apache paths. Joe bowed his head respectfully. Too many, grandmother. I am honored you remember me. Her gaze shifted to Cole and Josh. You bring strangers to dangerous lands. Seekers of truth, Joe replied. About the giants who are not giants. Something flickered in Elena's expression. She dismounted with surprising agility for her age, approaching Cole directly. Why do you seek these giants? She asked. Cole met her gaze steadily. Because they killed my sister's family. Or someone wants me to believe they did. Elena studied him intently, as if reading invisible signs on his face. Finally, she nodded once. You have honest eyes, come. There is something you must see. As they prepared to follow her, Josh whispered to Cole, Can we trust her? Cole looked to Joe, who nodded confidently. With our lives. Elena led them higher into the mountains, following trails invisible to untrained eyes. By mid-morning, they reached a vantage point overlooking a vast valley. Look, she commanded, pointing to a distant rock formation. Through his field glasses, Cole observed what appeared to be a skull mounted on a wooden post. Warning marker, Elena nodded. Put there by the Dos Santos sisters. The giants exist, Josh asked, surprised. Maria and Carmen Dos Santos exist, Elena clarified. They are not what your people believe. Show us, Cole requested. Elena hesitated, then made a decision. You will leave your weapons here. All of them. Cole and Josh exchanged glances, but Joe was already disarming. Do as she says. Reluctantly, Cole unbuckled his gun belt, then removed a knife from his boot and another from his sleeve. Josh surrendered his revolver. Now we go, Elena said, apparently satisfied. But remember, you are here by my invitation alone. Others may not welcome you. She led them down a hidden path that wound through near impassable terrain, narrow canyons, boulder fields, steep descents that no horse could navigate. After an hour of difficult hiking, they emerged into a sheltered valley nestled between towering cliffs. Hidden within this natural fortress was a small Apache settlement, perhaps 20 wickiups arranged in the traditional circle. Children played near a central fire pit where women worked while men stood guard at various vantage points. Their arrival caused immediate alarm. Warriors moved to defensive positions, women gathered children, and angry voices rose in Apache language. Elena called out reassurances, gesturing for the strangers to stay close. She guided them toward a larger wickiup set apart from the others. Wait here, she instructed, disappearing inside. Josh looked around nervously. Those aren't exactly friendly faces. Would you be friendly to white strangers after decades of broken treaties and bloodshed? Joe asked quietly. Before Josh could respond, the wickiup's entrance flap opened. Elena emerged, followed by 2 of the most striking women Cole had ever seen. They were indeed tall, well over 6 feet, with the lean, powerful builds of lifelong warriors. Both wore a combination of traditional Apache and Mexican clothing adorned with silver and turquoise. The elder sister, presumably Maria, had a face that might once have been beautiful, but was now set in permanent vigilance, her dark eyes assessing the strangers with professional detachment. Carmen, slightly taller, bore a dramatic scar across her left cheek, her expression openly hostile. "These are the men who seek you," Elena explained in English. Maria stepped forward, her hand resting casually on a knife at her belt. "Why?" Cole met her gaze directly. "To understand the truth about the attacks blamed on you." "Truth," Carmen spat on the ground. "White men's truth is like wind, it changes direction to suit them." "Not all white men," Joe interjected. Maria studied Cole intently. "You believe we killed your family." "I did," Cole admitted. "Now I'm not so certain." Why, Pierre, Cole described the attack on his sister's homestead, the evidence he'd found, his suspicions about Jim Hendricks. "This man uses our name to commit murder," Maria said, her voice dangerously soft, "to make us monsters in your people's eyes." "I believe so," Cole agreed, "but I need proof." Carmen laughed bitterly. "Proof? Will white courts listen to Apache testimony? Will they believe us over a rich white rancher?" "They'll believe evidence," Josh spoke up. "Documented, witnessed evidence. That's why I'm here." Maria's attention shifted to Josh. "And you are Josh Walker, reporter for the Chicago Tribune." He straightened slightly. "I document facts, the truth." The sisters exchanged glances, communicating silently in the way of people who had faced danger together countless times. Elena spoke quietly in Apache. Whatever she said caused both sisters to react with surprise, looking at Cole with new interest. "Elena says you carry great pain," Maria Mars translated, "that you seek justice, not vengeance." Cole nodded. "For my sister? For the truth. And for your son," Maria Baum added, glancing at Josh. Cole's expression revealed nothing, but something shifted in his eyes. "Yes." Maria made a decision. "Come, we will show you what your Jim Hendricks truly seeks." She led them through the settlement to a narrow cleft in the cliff face, barely wide enough for a person to pass sideways. Beyond this natural doorway lay a hidden canyon, smaller than the first, but even more protected. What Cole saw inside made his breath catch. Children, dozens of them, being taught by elders. Women tending gardens and soil, carried basket by basket from the valley floor. And against the far wall, a cave entrance guarded by warriors. "Survivors," Maria explained. "Children orphaned by army attacks. Families driven from reservation land, too poor to sustain life. Elders who remember the old ways." "You've created a sanctuary," Josh whispered, clearly moved. Carmen's hard expression softened slightly. "We protect what remains of our people." "And the cave?" Cole asked, nodding toward the guarded entrance. Maria hesitated, then gestured for them to follow. The guards stepped aside reluctantly, allowing them to enter. The cave extended deep into the mountain, illuminated by strategically placed torches. They walked for several minutes through winding passages before emerging into a larger chamber. Cole stopped abruptly, understanding dawning. The walls glittered in the torchlight, veins of gold so rich they seemed to bleed from the living rock. "Mother of God," Joe breathed. "The yellow metal your people kill for," Maria said simply, "found by our grandfather when these mountains were still ours alone. This is what Hendricks is after," Cole realized. "A gold mine worth millions." Maria nodded. "A courier was captured last winter. Before he died, he spoke of maps of Eastern investors, of plans to claim these mountains. When the Apache are finally destroyed or removed to reservations far away," Carmen added bitterly, "they will come with machines to tear open the mountain's heart." "So you created the giant legend," Cole surmised, "to keep people away." "We became the monsters they already believed we were," Maria acknowledged. "We attacked only armed men who came searching these mountains with maps and instruments, never families." "But someone began killing homesteaders," Josh said, "making it look like you. To create fear, to justify military action against all Apache," Elena explained, joining them, "to ensure no one would question when this last sanctuary is destroyed." Cole walked to the cave wall, examining the gold veins. "Hendricks couldn't do this alone. He has partners." "Eastern money," Joe agreed. "Mining interests. Maybe government officials." Josh was furiously taking notes. "This is bigger than we thought." Cole turned back to the sisters. We need to work together. End these killings. Expose the truth. Maria's expression remained skeptical. Why would you help us? This gold could make you rich. Cole removed the silver button from his pocket, holding it in his palm. Because my sister died for someone's greed. Because innocent families, both yours and mine, are being sacrificed for this yellow metal. He closed his fist around the button. And because I made a promise. Carmen studied him intensely. What promise? To find the truth, to ensure justice is done. Cole's gray eyes hardened with determination. No matter the bond. For the first time, Carmen's hostility faded, replaced by something like respect. And if the cost is your life, Cole's answer was immediate and absolute. Then that's the price of keeping my word. Maria and Carmen exchanged another silent communication. Finally, Maria extended her hand, a gesture both foreign and significant. Then we have common cause, Cole Walker. As they clasped hands, a distant sound echoed through the cave, a warning call from above. One of the guards rushed in, speaking rapidly in Apache. Maria's expression darkened. Riders approaching. Many riders. Hendris, Josh asked. Or army, Joe suggested grimly. Cole's mind raced. How did they find us so quickly? Josh paled, suddenly pulling something from his satchel, a silver-cased compass. He opened it, revealing not just a compass, but a hidden compartment containing a small piece of paper. This was a gift from the Tribune's owner when I took this assignment, he said, voice hollow with a realization. I think it's been tracking us. Maria snatched the device, studying it with growing anger. You led them to us. I didn't know. A second guard burst in with more urgent news. Maria listened, then turned to Cole with grim determination. Soldiers, 2 miles out and closing. Heavy weapons. Not just soldiers, Carmen added, having overheard the report. Hendris leads them. Cole's expression hardened. How many ways out of this valley? Only 2, Maria replied. The way you entered and a high pass to the north. Then we need to split up, Cole decided. Josh, you'll go north with Joe and as many of the Apache as can travel quickly. Take the evidence, your notes, everything documenting what we've found. What about you? Josh demanded. I'll create a diversion with Maria and Carmen. Draw them away from the settlement. Well, that's suicide, Josh protested. Cole gripped his son's shoulders. This is bigger than us now. The story needs to reach the public. The truth needs to be told. Elena approached, placing weathered hands on both their arms. There is another way, a path few know, dangerous, but it leads to safety. Show Josh, Cole instructed. Get him and the others out. As preparations began for evacuation, Cole pulled Josh aside for a final word. If I don't make it, there's a letter in my saddlebag. It explains everything about your mother, why I left the promises I made. Josh's anger and resentment visibly crumbled. Dad, no time, Cole cut him off. Just know that everything I did, every choice I made was to protect you and your mother, even staying away. Before Josh could respond, Maria interrupted. They're coming. We must move now. As Josh was led away with the evacuating families, he looked back once at his father. Cole stood with the Dos Santos sisters, checking weapons, preparing for battle, the manhunter becoming the hunted. In that moment, Josh finally saw his father clearly, not as the man who had abandoned his family, but as a man driven by principles deeper than blood, by promises that transcended personal happiness. Cole met his son's gaze one last time, allowing himself a brief, genuine smile. Then he turned away, following Maria and Carmen toward the valley entrance, where soldiers and mercenaries approached with destruction in mind. The battle for truth was about to begin. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the valley as Cole, Maria, and Carmen reached their chosen ambush point, a narrow pass where the approaching soldiers would be funneled between towering rock walls. Perfect for the 3 of them to create the illusion of a much larger force. 12 men, Maria reported, returning from her scouting position. Hendris rides with them, in a man in an officer's uniform. Captain Lewis, Carmen added with a scowl, known for his enthusiasm in Apache hunting. Cole checked his Winchester rifle borrowed from the Apache cache along with ammunition and other supplies. Hendris must have powerful friends to get army involvement so quickly. Gold makes powerful friends, Maria replied, adjusting her position behind a boulder. We don't kill the soldiers if possible. Wounded men require attention, slow their pursuit. Cole nodded. Our goal is distraction, not a body count. Give Josh and the others time to reach safety. Carmen seemed less convinced of this strategy. These men would slaughter our children without hesitation. And becoming like them serves what purpose? Cole challenged. Besides dead soldiers, bring more soldiers. A tense silence fell as they waited, broken only by the distant sound of approaching hoofbeats. Cole studied the Dos Santos sisters with professional appreciation. Despite the fearsome reputation cultivated around them, they moved with the disciplined precision of experienced fighters, not monsters. Maria, the strategist, positioned herself for maximum coverage while maintaining sightlines to her sister. Carmen, clearly the more aggressive of the two, balanced her impulsivity with calculated positioning. "Why do you fight for us?" Maria asked suddenly, her dark eyes fixed on Cole. "Your people would reward you for betraying us." Cole's weathered face remained impassive. "No, this isn't about Apache versus white. It's about truth versus lies, justice versus greed." "Simple words for complicated times," Carmen observed. "Truth is always simple," Cole replied. "Living by it is what's complicated." The conversation ended as the patrol came into view, picking their way carefully along the narrow trail. Hendris rode near the front beside a young army captain whose immaculate uniform suggested more time at a desk than in the field. The soldiers followed in single-file rifles at the ready, tension evident in their postures. Cole waited until the entire column had entered the pass, then gave a nod. Maria raised a small mirror flashing sunlight toward the cliffs opposite their position. Immediately, rocks began tumbling down, startling the horses and creating confusion. As the soldiers struggled to control their mounts, Cole fired 2 shots into the air. The effect was immediate. Soldiers dismounted, taking cover while returning fire toward the sound. Cole and the sisters had already moved to new positions, firing from different angles to create the impression of a larger force. "Apache!" one soldier shouted. "We're surrounded!" Captain Lewis attempted to organize a defense, but the uneven terrain and unseen attackers made it impossible. Hendris, showing unexpected courage, fired steadily at the cliff faces, his face twisted with frustration. "It's a diversion," he shouted to Lewis. "They're drawing us away from the settlement." The captain hesitated, torn between pressing forward and retreating from what seemed like an overwhelming force. Cole used the moment to aim carefully, shooting the hat from Hendris's head. The rancher dove for cover, cursing vividly. "Fall back," Lewis finally ordered. "Defensive positions at the valley entrance." As the soldiers retreated in good order, Maria signaled to Cole and Carmen. Time to disappear. They slipped between boulders into a hidden crevice that led away from the pass. "They will regroup, bring more men," Maria predicted as they moved swiftly through the rough terrain. "That's what we want," Cole replied. "Keep them focused on us, not the evacuation." Carmen led them to a series of caves higher up the mountainside where they could observe the soldiers regrouping half a mile below. Through field glasses, Cole watched Hendris gesticulating angrily at Captain Lewis, clearly unhappy with the retreat. "Your Hendris does not like being thwarted," Maria observed. "He's not used to it," Cole agreed. "Men like him believe money can buy anything, including victory." Night fell quickly in the mountains, bringing a bitter cold that penetrated their clothing. The three huddled in the cave entrance, maintaining watch and shifts, while small fires burned in the valley below, marking the soldiers' camp. During his watch, Cole heard soft footsteps approaching Maria, settling beside him, with a worn blanket that she offered wordlessly. He accepted with a nod of thanks. "Your son," she said after a long silence. "He is strong-willed." "Like his mother," Cole acknowledged. "You left them." It wasn't a question, but Cole answered anyway. "To protect them." Maria's expression revealed nothing. From what Cole stared into the darkness, memories surfacing like ghosts. My reputation, the enemies I'd made, the man I'd become. He adjusted the blanket against the mountain chill. "I was a manhunter, good at finding people who didn't want to be found, made me valuable to the army, to banks, to mining companies. Hunting Apache." "Sometimes," Cole admitted, "among others. I told myself I was serving justice, but the line blurred. Eventually, I couldn't recognize the man my wife saw when I came home." His voice dropped. "Especially after Skeleton Canyon." Maria's interest sharpened. "You were there, Skeleton Canyon, site of a notorious massacre where surrendering Apache had been slaughtered by army forces. A dark chapter few white men acknowledged, let alone regretted." "As a scout," Cole confirmed, I didn't participate in the killing, but I didn't stop it either. Just watched as soldiers murdered women and children who'd been promised safe passage. The memory etched new lines in his weathered face. That night I went home, looked at my wife and young son, and realized I couldn't bring that darkness into their lives anymore. So you left, sent money, stayed away, became the thing everyone expected, the cold-eyed manhunter who always got his quarry. Cole's laugh held no humor. Figured they were better off without me. Maria studied him in the moonlight. And your sister? Was she better off without you too? The question struck like a physical blow. I checked on them. From a distance, made sure they were safe. Cole's voice tightened, until I didn't. Maria said nothing for a long moment, then spoke with unexpected gentleness. Guilt is a poor companion for the road ahead, Cole Walker. Before he could respond, Carmen appeared from the shadows. Riders coming, not soldiers. They moved to a better vantage point, watching as 3 horsemen approached the army camp. Even from a distance, Cole recognized Grizzly Joe's distinctive silhouette. What the hell is he doing? Cole muttered. Through field glasses, they observed Joe dismounting, talking with Captain Lewis, while Hendricks watched suspiciously. The conversation appeared tense but not hostile. He betrays us, Carmen asked, hand moving to her knife. No, Cole said firmly. Joe wouldn't do that. All men can be broken or bought, Carmen replied darkly. Not Joe. Cole continued watching. He's playing a different game. After 20 minutes, Joe remounted and rode away with his companions, heading not toward the mountains but back toward Copper Creek. Lewis and Hendricks argued briefly before the camp settled again for the night. We need to know what that was about, Cole said, lowering the field glasses. Maria nodded. I know a way down that avoids their sentries. They descended carefully, using game trails invisible in the darkness to anyone without Maria's intimate knowledge of the terrain. Near the army camp, they found a vantage point close enough to hear voices, but protected by boulders and scrub pine. Waste of time, Hendricks was saying. Grizzly Joe is playing us for fools. He's a decorated veteran, Lewis replied. His information can't be dismissed outright. He's Apache-loving trash who's probably working with Walker. Lewis's voice hardened. Mr. Hendricks, I've accommodated your request for military assistance based on your standing with the governor. But I'll remind you that I command these men, not you. And I'll remind you, Captain, that your future in the Army depends on more than just following orders. My associates in Washington take a keen interest in officers who understand progress. A tense silence followed. What exactly do you propose? Lewis finally asked. Split your forces. Send half back to Copper Creek with me to investigate Joe's claims about Walker's son. Keep the rest here to maintain pressure on the Apache. And if Joe's telling the truth, if Walker really did find evidence linking you to these homestead attacks, Hendricks' laugh was cold. Evidence? What evidence? The word of a has-been manhunter and some Apache savages against one of the most respected businessmen in the territory. Be realistic, Captain. Nevertheless, I have a duty to investigate all. Your duty, Hendricks interrupted, is to eliminate the Apache threat and secure this territory for civilization. Everything else is a distraction. His voice lowered, becoming almost friendly. Remember our arrangement, Lewis. There's still a place for you in the mining operation once these mountains are cleared. A very profitable place. More silence than Lewis's resigned sigh. We'll leave at first light. Lieutenant Parker will remain with 5 men to continue reconnaissance. Cole withdrew silently, following Maria back to their hiding place where Carmen waited. Hendricks returns to Copper Creek, Cole explained. He fears what Josh might have learned. Your son is in danger, Maria stated flatly. Cole's expression hardened. Josh is smart. He'll have the sense to stay hidden until he can get his story out. Unless he believes you need help, Carmen pointed out. The observation struck uncomfortably close to truth. Josh was indeed smart, but also stubborn, idealistic, and desperate to prove himself to the father he'd resented for so long. We need to reach Copper Creek before Hendricks, Cole decided. Warn Josh, secure the evidence. Maria nodded. I know a path, difficult, but it will save half a day's travel. I'll go alone, Cole said. You two should rejoin your people to ensure they reach safety. Carmen made a sound of disagreement. This is our fight too, Walker. And you'll be more effective with your people than risking capture in a white town, Cole countered. Besides, someone needs to monitor the remaining soldiers here. The sisters exchanged one of their silent communications, reaching some private consensus. I will show you the path, Maria finally offered. Carmen will watch the soldiers. As they prepared to leave, Carmen approached Cole, pressing something into his hand, a small leather pouch decorated with Apache symbols. Medicine bundle, she explained, for protection. The gesture surprised him. I thought you didn't trust white men. Carmen's scarred face remained impassive. I don't trust most white men. She nodded toward the pouch. But Elena says you walk between worlds. Such men need protection from both sides. The path Maria led him along barely deserved the name, a treacherous route down sheer cliffs and through narrow ravines that no horse could navigate. They traveled by moonlight, Maria moving with the sure-footed confidence of someone who had walked these mountains since childhood. Cole followed, impressed despite himself by her strength and endurance. How much farther, he asked during a brief rest. We reached the valley floor by dawn, Maria replied, then half a day's hard travel to where horses wait. Your people keep horses hidden throughout the territory. She nodded. For emergencies, for escape. You've been planning for this day for a long time. My people have been hunted for generations, Cole Walker. Survival requires preparation. She studied him in the moonlight. You understand this. You also live prepared for the worst. Cole couldn't deny it. His life as a manhunter had been built around anticipating betrayal, planning escape routes, maintaining caches of supplies in remote locations. The habits of a hunted people weren't so different from those of a professional hunter. What will you do? Maria asked. When this is finished, the question caught him off guard. For so long, his focus had been on finding Sarah's killers, on justice. Beyond that, emptiness. I don't know, he admitted. Haven't thought that far ahead. Your son, Cole's expression softened slightly. Maybe, if he'll have me. He will, Maria said with unexpected certainty. He has your eyes. He has his mother's heart, Cole corrected. Thank God for that. They continued their descent, reaching flatter terrain as the eastern sky lightened with approaching dawn. Maria led him to a hidden arroyo where two horses waited, tended by a young Apache man who disappeared silently after a brief exchange with Maria. These will take us to Copper Creek, she explained, checking the animals. We can... She froze suddenly, head tilted in a listening posture. Cole heard it too, the distant thunder of multiple horses approaching fast. Riders, he confirmed, moving to higher ground for a better view. Through his field glasses, Cole spotted a group of perhaps 8 horsemen galloping along the main trail heading toward Copper Creek. Hendris rode at the front alongside Captain Lewis. They had left earlier than planned, pushing hard. They'll reach town hours before us, Cole realized, lowering the glasses. Not if we take the canyon route, Maria countered. Too dangerous in daylight. Army patrols. That is why we ride together, she interrupted. You know army movements. I know the land. Cole studied her determined expression. Why risk yourself for my son, for my fight? It became our fight when Hendris used our name to murder innocent families, Maria replied evenly. When he threatened our sanctuary. There was truth in her words, but Cole sensed something deeper, perhaps a recognition that their separate worlds were colliding in ways that would forever change both. Let's ride, he said simply. They pushed their horses hard through terrain that seemed impassable, dry riverbeds, narrow canyons, paths that clung to cliff edges with barely enough room for the horses' hooves. Maria rode with the confidence of someone born to the saddle, guiding them through a landscape that held no secrets from her. Near midday, they paused to rest the horses in the shadow of a massive rock formation. Cole scanned their back trail with field glasses, while Maria consulted a small, hide-covered book mapping their route from memory to paper. You're documenting the paths, Cole observed. Maria nodded. For those who come after. If I fall, others must know these ways. You expect to die in this fight. It wasn't a question, but Maria answered anyway. I expect to live, but I plan for death. She closed the book, securing it inside her clothing. This is wisdom my father taught. The warrior who fears death cannot truly live. The warrior who accepts death is free to fight without hesitation. Cole recognized the philosophy he'd lived by, something similar during his years as a manhunter. The difference was that Maria's calm acceptance seemed born of spiritual certainty, while his had come from a place of emptiness, of having nothing left to lose. They continued riding through the afternoon heat, emerging from the canyon country into rolling grasslands that would take them to Copper Creek's outskirts. As the town's distant buildings appeared on the horizon, Maria reined in her horse. "I cannot go further," she said. "A 7-foot Apache woman would cause complications." Cole nodded understanding. "Where will you wait?" "Old Mission Ruins 2 miles east. I will watch from there." She studied him intently. "Be careful, Cole Walker. Hendris is cornered now. Most dangerous time." "I know predators," Cole assured her. "Been hunting them my whole life." "This time you are the prey." Maria's expression remained solemn. "Return by moonrise. If you do not come, I will find you." It sounded more like a promise than a threat. Cole tipped his hat in acknowledgement, then urged his horse toward town as Maria disappeared into the gathering dusk. Copper Creek had changed in the days since Cole had left. The usual evening bustle was absent, windows shuttered despite the early hour. Armed men patrolled the streets in pairs, not soldiers, but civilians with deputy badges hastily pinned to their vests. Something had the town on edge. Cole left his horse at the livery's outer corral, approaching on foot through back alleys. The Copper Queen Saloon's windows glowed with lantern light, voices spilling into the street, the only building showing signs of normal activity. Whatever was happening, the center of it would be there. Keeping to shadows, Cole worked his way behind the row of businesses until he reached the saloon's rear entrance. A drunk cowboy stumbled out to relieve himself, providing the opportunity Cole needed. He slipped inside, finding himself in a narrow hallway leading to the kitchen. From there, he could hear Hendris's booming voice addressing the crowded main room. "Dangerous criminal in league with the Apache betrayed his own kind for personal gain." Murmurs of anger and disbelief rippled through the crowd. "I've known Cole Walker 20 years, came another voice, Sheriff Wilson. "He's many things, but not a traitor." "Tell that to my men who died in the ambush," Hendris countered. "Gunned down alongside Army soldiers by Walker and his Apache friends." More angry murmurs, louder now. "No one died in that skirmish," Captain Lewis corrected, his voice carrying professional authority. "3 men wounded, none seriously." "Only by God's grace," Hendris responded smoothly. Their intentions were clear. Cole edged closer to the kitchen door, peering through the crack. The main room was packed with townspeople, Hendris standing on a chair to address them. Sheriff Wilson stood nearby, his expression troubled. Captain Lewis and several soldiers maintained positions near the entrance, looking uncomfortable with the proceedings. Most worrying was the sight of Josh seated at a table near the bar with his hands bound before him, a deputy standing guard. His face showed a darkening bruise along one cheekbone, but his expression remained defiant. "And now we have his son," Hendris continued, gesturing toward Josh. "Caught distributing seditious materials, false accusations against respected citizens. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree." "Let the boy speak for himself," called an older woman from the crowd. "Mrs. Peterson, with respect," Hendris replied with exaggerated patience. "This young man has been thoroughly questioned. He maintains his father's innocence despite overwhelming evidence to the contrary." "What evidence?" Sheriff Wilson demanded. Hendris smiled thinly. "Captain Lewis, perhaps you should explain what your men found at the Apache camp." Lewis stepped forward reluctantly. "We discovered arms caches, supplies stolen from Army outposts, and—" He hesitated. "Personal effects from homesteads that were attacked." A shocked hush fell over the crowd. "Planted," Josh shouted, earning a cuff from his guard. "My father found proof that Hendris staged those attacks. He's after the gold in Apache territory." "Gold?" Hendris laughed incredulously. "Now we add treasure hunting to the charges." The boy's clearly delusional. "I documented everything," Josh persisted. "The real Apache had nothing to do with the homestead attacks. They were protecting." Another harder blow silenced him. Sheriff Wilson moved to intervene, but found his path blocked by deputies. "That's enough, son," Hendris said, his voice carrying false sympathy. "Mom, we understand you're confused, manipulated by your father. Cooperate. Tell us where he's hiding, and we'll show leniency." "Go to hell," Josh managed through bloodied lips. Hendris sighed dramatically. "Such loyalty, misplaced though it may be." He addressed the crowd again. "Cole Walker must be brought to justice. I'm offering $500 for information leading to his capture, $1,000 for the man who brings him in." The crowd stirred with interest, serious money in frontier terms. We'll form search parties at first light, Hendricks continued. Meanwhile, keep your families safe. Lock your doors. Walker and his Apache allies could strike anywhere. Cole had heard enough. He retreated down the hallway, mind racing. Josh was alive, but captive. The town was inflamed against him. Hendricks had control of both civilian and military authorities. Finding a back storeroom, Cole settled into shadow to consider his options. Direct intervention would likely get both him and Josh killed. He needed allies, but whose Sheriff Wilson seemed sympathetic but powerless. Grizzly Joe was nowhere to be seen, possibly captured himself or in hiding. A noise at the storeroom door snapped Cole to alertness. He drew his knife, flattening himself against the wall as the door creaked open. A figure entered cautiously, carrying a lantern held low. "Walker, you in here?" came a whispered voice. Cole recognized the bartender. Simmons, a veteran of the Mexican War, who'd shown no particular loyalty to Hendricks previously. "Here," Cole responded quietly, staying concealed. "How did you know?" "Saw you slip in. Figured you'd be looking for your boy." Simmons set the lantern on a barrel. "Town's gone crazy, Walker. Hendricks has deputies everywhere offering money for your head. My son, locked in the jail. Sheriff Wilson's been removed some trumped-up charge of obstructing justice. New Sheriff's Hendricks' foreman." Simmons glanced nervously at the door. "They're saying you're in league with the Apache, that you helped murder those homesteaders." "All lies," Cole said. "Hendricks staged those attacks to drive down land prices. He's after a gold deposit in Apache territory." Simmons didn't look convinced. "That's what your boy was saying. Sounds far-fetched." "Truth often does." Cole studied the bartender. "Why are you helping me?" "Served with your father in Mexico. Hank Walker was a good man who saved my life at Buena Vista." Simmons straightened slightly. "Figure I owe his son a fair chance, at least." Cole nodded appreciation. "I need to get Josh out of that jail." "Impossible. Place is guarded like a fortress. 4 deputies inside, 2 outside. Army patrol checking every hour." "What about Grizzly Joe? Have you seen him?" "Joe's at Doc Franklin's. Took a beating when they brought your son in, tried to intervene." Simmons checked his pocket watch. "Look, I need to get back before I'm missed." "What do you need?" Cole considered his limited options. "Weapons, ammunition, and if you can get a message to Doc Franklin's, tell Joe I'm here." "I'll try." Simmons moved toward the door, then hesitated. "One more thing. There's a stranger in town. Mexican fellow, well-dressed, arrived yesterday with 2 hired guns. Been meeting privately with Hendricks. Name Vega, Miguel Vega, claims to represent business interests in Santa Fe." The name meant nothing to Cole, but the timing was suspicious. The Eastern investors Hendricks mentioned. "Could be. Whatever's happening, it's coming to a head soon." Simmons reached for the door. "There's a loose board in the floor under that back shelf. Previous owner kept a shotgun there. Might still be around." After Simmons left, Cole found the hidden compartment, and sure enough, a greener shotgun with a box of shells. Not much against the forces Hendricks had assembled, but better than nothing. He settled in to wait, listening to the saloon gradually empty as night deepened. His thoughts turned to Josh, imprisoned and likely frightened, despite his brave front. To Maria, waiting at the mission ruins, perhaps already suspecting something had gone wrong. To Sarah, whose murder had set this entire sequence of events in motion. So many threads all weaving together into a tapestry of greed, violence, and lies. At its center sat Jim Hendricks, a man willing to orchestrate murder for financial gain. But Hendricks was just one strand in a larger pattern. The Mexican Vega, the Eastern investors, perhaps even government officials who stood to profit from Apache land cleared of its original inhabitants. A soft knock interrupted his thoughts. The storeroom door opened to admit a small, wizened figure Cole recognized as Doc Franklin's assistant, Mrs. Abernathy. "Mr. Walker," she whispered, "Joe sent me. Says to tell you the eagle flies at midnight." Cole almost smiled. Joe's flair for dramatic phrases remained intact despite his injuries. "What does it mean?" Mrs. Abernathy asked. "It means help is coming," Cole explained. "How badly is Joe hurt?" "Broken ribs, concussion, but that's not stopping him from organizing." She handed Cole a folded paper. "Map of the jail guard rotations. And this." From her apron pocket came a deputy's badge. "Sheriff Wilson's men remain loyal to him, not Hendricks' puppet. They'll create a distraction at midnight." Cole studied the jail diagram. "What about the Army patrol?" Captain Lewis received an urgent message requiring his presence at Fort Bowie, left an hour ago with most of his men. Mrs. Abernathy's eyes twinkled with mischief, despite her advanced years. Amazing how official-looking Army dispatches can be with the right letterhead. Cole's respect for Joe's resourcefulness increased. And Hendress, at the hotel with the Mexican gentleman, very private meeting. She moved toward the door. Midnight, Mr. Walker, eastern end of town. Watch for the signal. After she left, Cole checked his weapons and studied the jail diagram, memorizing details. If Joe's plan worked, he'd have perhaps 5 minutes to extract Josh before reinforcements arrived. Risky, but their options were limited. As he waited for midnight, Cole found himself thinking of Maria dos Santos. Under different circumstances, in a different world, she would have made a formidable ally in his former profession or a worthy adversary. Her intelligence, courage, and unwavering principles reminded him of qualities he'd once possessed himself before years of manhunting had hardened him into something colder, more mechanical. Perhaps that was why he'd left his family, not just to protect them from external threats, but from the man he was becoming. A man who saw the world in terms of hunters and prey, of tactical advantages and acceptable losses. Sarah's death had rekindled something he'd thought long extinguished, not just anger or vengeance, but a sense of purpose beyond the next bounty. And now, preparing to risk everything for his son, Cole Walker, felt more alive, more human than he had in years. Whatever happened tonight would determine not just Josh's fate, but his own. Midnight approached. Cole moved silently through the saloon's back exit into the alley beyond. The town was eerily quiet, most buildings dark except for the hotel where Hendress was meeting with Vega and the jail at the street's opposite end. Keeping to shadows, Cole worked his way east, shotgun concealed beneath a borrowed serape. Twice he froze as deputy patrols passed nearby, their lanterns swinging lazily, their conversations suggesting boredom rather than vigilance. At the town's eastern edge, Cole took position behind an abandoned blacksmith shop, watching the jail 100 yards distant. 4 guards visible, 2 at the entrance, 2 patrolling the perimeter. Inside, presumably more deputies guarding Josh and any other prisoners. The town clock began striking midnight. On the 3rd chime, a series of gunshots erupted from the saloon, followed by shouting and the sound of breaking glass. The jail guards reacted immediately, 2 running toward the disturbance, while the others drew weapons, suddenly alert. Then came the second phase of Joe's distraction. A wagon loaded with barrels came careening down the street, no driver visible, heading directly for the jail. The remaining guards scattered as the wagon crashed into the building's front porch with a spectacular splintering of wood. Cole moved quickly, using the confusion to approach from the jail's blind side. A deputy emerged from the rear door, distracted by the commotion out front. Cole's rifle butt caught him behind the ear, dropping him unconscious. Inside, Cole found a single guard at the cell block entrance, already moving to investigate the crash. The man turned, reaching for his gun when he saw Cole, but froze when he recognized the intruder. "Walker," he whispered. Cole tensed, prepared for resistance, but the deputy simply nodded toward the cells. "Wilson sent me," the man explained quietly. "Your boy's in the last cell. Here." He handed over the keys. "I never saw you, understand." Not all of Hendress's corruption had taken root, it seemed. Cole accepted the keys with a nod of thanks, moving quickly to the rear cell where Josh lay on a wooden bunk. "Dad." Josh sat up, disbelief and hope warring in his expression. "Time to go, son." Cole unlocked the cell. "You hurt?" "Nothing serious." Josh winced as he stood, favoring his left side. "Ribs. Maybe a tooth loose." "Can you try and stop me?" Despite his injuries, Josh managed a grin that reminded Cole painfully of the boy he'd once been. They moved through the jail, Cole leading with the shotgun while Josh limped behind. The friendly deputy had disappeared, presumably to maintain his cover. Outside, the distraction continued, the saloon in apparent chaos. Deputies and townspeople gathered to watch. Cole guided Josh to the alley behind the jail where 2 horses waited, courtesy of Joe's planning. As they mounted, gunfire erupted from the direction of the hotel, not the controlled shots of the distraction, but the desperate barrage of a genuine firefight. "What's happening?" Josh asked. "Change of plan," Cole replied grimly. "We need to see what's happening at the hotel." "Dad, we should run while we can." "Not yet." Cole turned his horse toward the sound of gunfire. "Hendress is meeting with an investor named Vega. This might be our only chance to get proof of their conspiracy." Josh hesitated, then followed loyalty, overcoming his better judgment. They circled wide around the town center, approaching the hotel from its rear. The gunfire had stopped, replaced by shouting and the sound of running feet. Tying their horses in a service alley, Cole and Josh crept to the hotel's back entrance. The kitchen was deserted, pots still bubbling on the stove, abandoned in haste by staff fleeing the gunfire. They moved carefully toward the main staircase, voices becoming clearer as they approached. "Complete disaster," Hendricks was shouting. "Walker-free evidence missing, and now this." "Calm yourself," replied a cultured voice with a Spanish accent. "This changes nothing. The plan proceeds." "Proceeds?" Hendricks' voice rose in disbelief. "Your man just killed Captain Lewis in the middle of my hotel." The army will do nothing," the Spanish voice interrupted smoothly. "Lewis was becoming a liability, asking too many questions about our arrangements." Cole and Josh exchanged glances. They had stumbled into something far bigger than anticipated. Carefully, they climbed to the second-floor landing, following the voices to a suite at the corridor's end. The door stood partially open, allowing them to see inside without being observed. Hendricks paced frantically while a slender man in an immaculate suit, presumably Vega, sat calmly at a writing desk. Two hard-faced men with holstered revolvers flanked the door, while a third dragged a sheet-covered body toward the balcony. "Lewis was our military authority," Hendricks protested. "Without him, his replacement will be more accommodating," Vega replied, signing a document with flourish. "Colonel Edwards understands the broader implications of our project, the economic benefits to the territory. In Edwards, he's not even stationed in Arizona. He arrives tomorrow with a full company." Vega sealed the document with wax. "The Apache problem will be resolved permanently within the week." And Walker, his son, "They have evidence, witnesses. Evidence can disappear. Witnesses can have accidents." Vega smiled thinly. "Really, James, your panic is unnecessary. We've invested too much to abandon the operation now." "The gold deposit is merely the beginning," Vega interrupted. "The railroads spur the mining town. The water rights a comprehensive development worth millions. Your vision expanded thanks to my employers." Cole had heard enough. He eased back from the door, gesturing for Josh to retreat. They had nearly reached the stairs when one of the floorboards creaked betrayingly. "Someone's there," a guard's voice followed by the sound of a gun being drawn. Cole shoved Josh toward the stairs. "Run! Get to the horses!" Josh hesitated only briefly before understanding the urgency. He sprinted down the stairs as Cole turned to face the approaching guards, shotgun raised. The first guard rounded the corner, pistol extended. Cole fired the shotgun's blast, catching the man squarely in the chest and throwing him backward into his companion. Taking advantage of the confusion, Cole ran for the stairs, a bullet splintering the banister beside him. In the lobby, Josh waited instead of fleeing as instructed. "This way," he called, leading Cole through a side door into an adjacent alley. They reached their horses as shouts and gunfire erupted behind them. Mounting quickly, they galloped down the dark street, bullets kicking up dust at their horses' heels. "Head east," Cole shouted above the wind, "toward the old mission." Josh followed without question as they thundered out of town, the sounds of pursuit gradually fading behind them. Only when they reached the shelter of a dry creek bed did Cole finally slow their pace, allowing the horses to recover. "What the hell was that?" Josh demanded, breathless from their escape. "Who's Vega? What's this about a Colonel Edwards?" "Something bigger than Hendricks," Cole replied grimly. "A coordinated plan to seize Apache territory, not just for gold, but for development, railroad, water rights, mining operations. With government support," Josh added, understanding dawning. "Military support." "Exactly." Cole checked his shotgun, now empty. "Which means Hendricks is just a local operative in a much larger conspiracy." Josh's journalist instincts engaged despite their danger. "I need to document this. Get word to my newspaper to territorial authorities not involved." "First, we need to survive the night," Cole reminded him. "Hendricks will have men searching every trail out of town." They continued east at a slower pace, conserving the horses' strength while remaining vigilant for pursuit. As they approached the ruins of the old Spanish mission, a shadow detached itself from the crumbling bell tower. "You are late, Cole Walker," Maria observed, emerging into moonlight. Her eyes noted Josh's bruised face and hunched posture. "You found your son. Good." And more trouble than we bargained for, Cole added, dismounting stiffly. While Josh tended the horses, Cole briefed Maria on what they'd discovered at the Hotel Vega, the killing of Captain Lewis, the imminent arrival of Colonel Edwards with a full company of soldiers. Maria absorbed this information with characteristic calm. So they no longer hide behind the Apache giant story. Now they use direct military force. Progress, Cole said sardonically, replacing calculated deception with brute strength. What's our next move? Josh asked, joining them. We get you and your evidence to safety, Cole replied. Then, no, Josh interrupted firmly. I'm not leaving. This is my story, my fight too. Josh, I'm not a child anymore, Dad. Stop trying to protect me by pushing me away. The words struck Cole like a physical blow. Wasn't that exactly what he'd done for years? Pushed away his family in the name of protection. Before Cole could respond, Maria stiffened, her attention drawn to the western horizon. Riders, many of them. Through his field glasses, Cole confirmed her observation, at least 10 horsemen approaching from Copper Creek, lanterns swinging as they searched the terrain. Hendris isn't waiting for morning, Cole observed grimly. He wants this finished tonight. We're trapped, Josh realized. They'll have men watching all the trails out of the territory. Maria's expression remained impassive. Not all trails. She turned to Cole. It is time to trust fully Cole Walker, to walk the path between worlds. Cole understood her meaning immediately. The Apache sanctuary, Elena's hidden canyon. Maria nodded. The only safe place now, for all of us. Josh looked between them, confusion evident. What sanctuary? The place where your evidence makes sense, son, Cole explained, where all the pieces come together. As the distant lanterns drew closer, they mounted their horses, Maria leading them away from established trails into terrain that seemed impassable in the darkness. Behind them, Hendris's men spread out in a search pattern, gradually disappearing from view as the rugged landscape swallowed the three fugitives. They rode through the night, Maria navigating by stars and memory leading them ever deeper into Apache territory, away from Copper Creek, away from civilization and its corruptions, toward a sanctuary hidden from white men's maps. But even as they rode, a military messenger was galloping toward Fort Bowie, carrying orders for Colonel Edwards and his company. The final campaign against the Apache was about to begin, authorized at the highest levels, fueled by the promise of gold and progress. The race for truth had become a race for survival. Dawn broke across the mountains in ribbons of gold and crimson as the three riders reached the hidden valley entrance. They had ridden through the night, Maria leading them on paths that seemed to disappear beneath the horses' hooves, only to reappear unexpectedly around the next bend. Twice they'd hidden from army patrols, once lying motionless under scrub brush as soldiers passed within yards of their position. Josh Walker was barely staying in the saddle, exhaustion and his injuries taking their toll. Cole watched his son with growing concern, the bruised face the way he favored his left side, the increasing difficulty he had maintaining focus. We rest here, Cole announced as they reached a sheltered grove beside a small spring. Maria nodded agreement. 1 hour, no more. We are still too exposed. As Josh slid gratefully from his horse, Cole helped him to a comfortable spot against a boulder. Let me check those ribs. Josh winced as his father gently probed his side. Just bruised, I think. Nothing broken. You should have stayed with Joe's people, Cole said quietly. Been safer. And missed the biggest story of my career. Josh attempted a smile that turned into a grimace. Not a chance. Cole dampened a bandana in the spring water, cleaning the dried blood from his son's face with unexpected gentleness. The gesture reminded Josh of childhood moments, scrapes treated, tears dried, rare occasions when the manhunter had been simply a father. I read your article drafts, Cole said suddenly, while you were sleeping, about the Apache giants, Hendris the gold mine. Josh stiffened. Those were private. Good reporting, thorough, fair. Cole wrung out the bandana. Your mother would be proud. The compliment, so unexpected, momentarily robbed Josh of response. Finally, he managed, You're not angry, I was investigating you too. Should I be? Cole's weathered face revealed nothing. I called you a controversial figure with a bloody reputation. Said your methods were questionable, at best barbaric at worst. Cole nodded slowly. Accurate reporting. Is that all you have to say? What do you want me to? Wow, Josh, that I'm offended I hunted men for money, Delivered them dead when alive proved too complicated. Cole's voice remained even matter-of-fact. I made choices. They had consequences. The truth isn't always flattering. Before Josh could respond, Maria approached with a small pouch. Medicine, she explained, kneeling beside Josh, for pain swelling. She mixed various powders with spring water, creating a paste that she applied to Josh's bruises. The concoction smelled strongly of herbs and minerals, immediately producing a cooling sensation wherever it touched. My grandmother's recipe, Maria explained, used by warriors after battle. Thank you, Josh said, studying her with the frank curiosity of a journalist. I still can't believe you're real. The Apache giant, the terror of the territory. Maria's expression remained neutral. People see what they fear. Fear makes giants of shadows. But you encouraged the legend, Josh pressed, used it to protect your people. Sometimes a useful lie serves truth better than a useless fact. Maria finished applying the medicine, wiping her hands on a cloth. Rest now, the path ahead is difficult. As she moved away to check their back trail, Josh watched her with open admiration. She's remarkable. Yeah, Cole agreed, his tone revealing more than he perhaps intended. Josh raised an eyebrow. You and her, focus on staying alive. Cole cut him off, rising to his feet. Romance is a luxury for peacetime. But Josh had seen something in his father's face, a softening, a vulnerability that the legendary manhunter rarely displayed. He filed the observation away, journalist instincts never fully dormant, even in their precarious situation. After a brief rest, they continued their journey, Maria leading them higher into the mountains, following game trails so faint that Cole himself, an experienced tracker, could barely discern them. By midday, they had reached familiar territory, the approach to the skull marker Cole had seen on his first journey to the Apache sanctuary. We are watched, Maria said quietly as they neared the marker. My sister's scouts. Sure enough, a bird call sounded from nearby rocks, too perfect, too deliberate to be natural. Maria responded with a similar call, adding a distinctive trill at the end. Minutes later, Carmen dos Santos emerged from a hidden position, so well concealed that even Cole hadn't detected her presence. The sisters embraced briefly, speaking rapid Apache that Cole couldn't follow. Carmen's expression darkened as Maria explained their situation, her scarred face hardening with anger when she heard about Colonel Edwards and the impending military action. They come in force now, Carmen said in English, addressing Cole directly. No more pretense. No more time, Cole agreed grimly. How many warriors can you gather? Carmen's laugh was without humor. Warriors, we have perhaps 20 men of fighting age, against a full army company. She shook her head. This is not a battle we can win through strength. Then we win through truth, Josh interjected, patting his satchel. I have documentation, witness statements, maps enough to expose Hendris Vega, all of it. And who will believe you, Carmen challenged. A boy with a pen against men with gold and guns. People will listen, Josh insisted. The Tribune has influence. Territorial governor reads it. Senators. By the time your words reach those ears, my people will be dead or scattered, Carmen replied bluntly. Paper burns. People bleed. This is the way of the world. The harsh assessment silenced Josh momentarily. Maria intervened, placing a hand on her sister's arm. We should discuss this with Elena and the council, she suggested. Many minds find paths that one cannot. Carmen nodded reluctantly, leading them through the hidden entrance to the sanctuary valley. Inside, the scene had changed dramatically since Cole's first visit. The peaceful settlement had transformed into a makeshift defensive camp. Women packed essentials, while men prepared weapons. Children helped elderly members of the tribe secure necessities for travel. They prepared to flee, Cole observed. We received warning yesterday, Carmen explained. Army scouts seen near the South Ridge. Too close to be coincidence. Elena awaited them at the central fire pit, her ancient face lined with concern, but her bearing still regal. Beside her sat Grizzly Joe, his chest bandaged, but his eyes alert. When he spotted Cole and Josh, a broad grin split his wild-bearded face. Told you they'd make it, he called to Elena. Walker's too ornery to D, and the boy's got his father's luck. Reunions were brief, dictated by urgency. Cole and Josh related everything they'd learned in Copper Creek, the conspiracy between Hendris and Vega, Captain Lewis's murder, Colonel Edwards' imminent arrival with a full company of soldiers. Elena listened without interruption, only her darkening eyes revealing her dismay. When they finished, she remained silent for a long moment, then addressed the gathered tribal leaders in Apache. Though Cole couldn't understand the words, the gravity of her tone needed no translation. Joe leaned closer to Cole. She's telling them it's time to implement the last resort plan. The women, children, and elders will take the high mountain pass to the northern bands. The rest stay to delay pursuit. Suicide, Cole murmured. Honor, Joe corrected. The old way. When Elena finished speaking, Carmen stepped forward, addressing the gathering with fierce determination. Warriors nodded approval at her words, while mothers held their children tighter. What's she saying? Josh whispered. That she will lead the warriors personally, Maria translated quietly, that they will make the soldiers pay in blood for every foot of ground they take. There has to be another way, Josh insisted. If I could get my story out, your story dies with you if captured, Carmen interrupted in English, having overheard. Hendris and his allies will ensure no word reaches your tribune. A heavy silence fell over the group, broken finally by Elena. There is another path, she said, her accented English deliberate and clear. Dangerous, but perhaps with hope. She turned to Cole. The man Vega, you say he carries documents, proof of this conspiracy? Cole nodded. Papers, maps, agreements. He was preparing them when we overheard him at the hotel. And these papers would be believed by your government. Signatures of officials, company letterheads, military orders. Yes, they would be irrefutable. Elena's eyes gleamed with ancient wisdom. Then we must take them. Raid Copper Creek. Joe looked skeptical. Towns crawling with deputies and Hendris's men. Not Copper Creek, Elena clarified. Vega travels to meet Colonel Edwards tomorrow, at the old trading post on Carrion Creek. Cole's interest sharpened. How do you know this? We have ears where white men speak freely, Elena replied with dignity. Servants, workers, those your people see but do not notice. The trading post is isolated, Cole mused, mentally mapping the location. Easier to approach than the town or the fort. And vulnerable, pardon, Carmen added, warming to the plan. Few buildings limited sight lines from the main structure. A small group could infiltrate while they meet, Maria suggested. Take the documents, capture Vega himself if possible. Joe stroked his wild beard thoughtfully. Risky, very risky. Less risky than facing a full company in open battle, Cole pointed out. Josh had been listening intently, a journalist's mind cataloging details. What about Hendris? Will he be there too? Almost certainly, Cole replied. He wouldn't miss the chance to finalize his arrangement with Edwards. Then I'm going, Josh declared. I need to document this meeting, get statements, names, details. Too dangerous, Cole said immediately. I'm a reporter, Dad. Danger comes with the territory. Josh's expression hardened with determination. Besides, someone needs to record what happens, someone they won't expect. The discussion continued into the afternoon, plans formulated and refined. A raid party would depart at nightfall. Cole, Maria, Carmen, and 3 Apache warriors with exceptional stealth skills. Josh, despite Cole's objections, would accompany them as documenter. Joe would remain at the sanctuary to coordinate evacuation preparations if the mission failed. As dusk approached, Cole found a moment alone with Elena. The old medicine woman sat beside a small fire, grinding herbs in a stone mortar. You don't expect us to succeed, Cole observed, settling beside her. Elena's weathered hands continued their rhythmic work. I have lived long enough to expect nothing, Cole Walker. To hope, yes. To prepare, always. But to expect, she shook her head. The gods laugh at such certainty. Yet you propose this plan, because it offers what my people need most now. She looked up, her dark eyes reflecting firelight. Not just survival, but justice, dignity. Her gaze held his. Things you understand, I think. Cole nodded slowly. My sister deserved justice. Your people deserve their homeland. Simple truths in a complicated world. And your son, Elena asked gently, what does he deserve? The question caught Cole off guard. A father who didn't abandon him, he admitted after a pause. A better example than I provided. Perhaps, Elena agreed, or perhaps the father he needed to become the man he is. She gestured toward where Josh sat with Maria, earnestly discussing something. He has strength, your son. Courage. A good heart. These did not come from nowhere. Cole watched Josh, animated despite his injuries, passionate about truth and justice, in a way that reminded him painfully of both Sarah and Josh's mother. Had his absence somehow helped shape that determination? The thought was both comforting and heartbreaking. I have something for you, Elena said, interrupting his thoughts. From within her clothing, she withdrew a small object wrapped in soft buckskin. My grandfather made this for a white man once, a man who walked between worlds as you do. She unwrapped the bundle, revealing a silver medallion on a leather cord. The medallion bore intricate engravings, Apache symbols, intertwined with what appeared to be Christian imagery. What does it mean? Cole asked, studying the strange combination of cultural elements. That truth has many faces. That enemies can become allies. That paths crossing can change both travelers. Elena placed the medallion in his palm, closing his fingers around it. Wear it tonight. It offers protection for those with divided hearts. Before Cole could ask what she meant by divided hearts, Maria approached, now dressed for the coming mission in dark clothing, hair tied back, weapons secured for silent movement. It's time, she said simply. Carrion Creek Trading Post had been established during the early mining days, serving as a supply point for prospectors heading into the mountains. Now largely abandoned as the mining boom had shifted elsewhere, it stood in dusty isolation, a main building with attached stable, a few outlying sheds, and a disused blacksmith shop, all arranged around a central yard. From their observation point on a ridge overlooking the trading post, Cole studied the layout through field glasses. The moon had not yet risen, leaving the buildings as dark silhouettes against the star-filled sky. No lights burned in any window, no horses stood at the hitching rails. The place appeared deserted. Too quiet, Carmen murmured beside him. No guards, no scouts. Cole agreed. For a meeting of such importance, the lack of security seemed suspicious. Could our information be wrong? Elena's sources are reliable, Maria replied, her voice barely audible. Perhaps they arrive at dawn. Or perhaps it's a trap, Josh suggested from his position slightly behind them. Cole lowered the field glasses, considering. If they suspected we might learn of the meeting, they could have planted the information, Carmen finished grimly, lured us here while they attacked the sanctuary. The sanctuary is well hidden, Maria reminded them, and Joe would have sent warning if soldiers approached. Cole made a decision. We need to verify before assuming the worst. Carmen, take your men and circle north. Check for hidden positions, ambush signs. Maria, Josh, and I will approach from the south, examine the buildings. Carmen nodded approval of the plan, gesturing for her warriors to follow as she melted into the darkness with predatory grace. Cole led Maria and Josh down the ridge, using the scattered juniper and mesquite for cover as they approached the trading post. They reached the blacksmith shop without incident, finding it truly abandoned, dust undisturbed on the floor, cobwebs intact across doorways. No one's been here in months, Josh whispered, examining the ancient forge. Let's check the main building, Cole suggested, growing increasingly uneasy with the complete absence of activity. They crossed the yard like shadows approaching the trading post's rear entrance. The door stood slightly ajar, another warning sign. Cole drew his knife, signaling for Josh to stay back while he and Maria investigated. Inside, moonlight, filtering through dirty windows, revealed an interior in disarray, shelves empty, counter-broken, signs of long abandonment. But in the center of the room incongruously stood a table with a lantern and what appeared to be papers spread across its surface. Documents, Josh breathed, moving forward despite Cole's warning gesture. Wait, Cole cautioned, grabbing his son's arm. Something's wrong. But Josh had already reached the table, picking up one of the papers. It's a map, he said, squinting in the dim light. Mining claims, railroad routes, exactly what we're looking for. Instinct screamed danger to Cole. Put it down. Now. Too late. The scrape of a match broke the silence as a lantern flared to life in the corner. In its sudden illumination stood Jim Hendris, flanked by 4 armed men. Another door opened, revealing Miguel Vega with his own contingent of guards. Right on schedule, Hendris announced with smug satisfaction. I told you they'd take the bait, Vega. Cole's mind raced, calculating odds, seeking escape routes. Josh stood frozen beside the table, the map still in his hand. Maria had vanished, either captured or more likely slipped into shadow the moment the trap was sprung. Mr. Walker, Vega stepped forward impeccably, dressed even in these frontier surroundings. How convenient of you to deliver yourself to us. Saves considerable manhunting expense. Where's Edwards? Cole asked, playing for time, hoping Carmen had avoided the trap. Colonel Edwards is quite real, I assure you, Vega replied smoothly, as is his company of soldiers. But their orders concern Apache extermination, not this private business meeting. Hendris moved closer, his expression triumphant. Did you really think we wouldn't have informants among the Apache? That we wouldn't anticipate your every move? The revelation hit Cole like a physical blow. Someone at the sanctuary had betrayed them, said Elena. False information revealed their plans. Who? He demanded. Hendris laughed. Does it matter? Desperate people sell information cheaply, Walker. A promise of safety, of reservation land, instead of a grave. You'd be amazed what some will trade for such assurances. Josh finally found his voice. You won't get away with this. People know what you're planning. My newspaper will receive a tragic story about a promising young journalist killed by Apache raiders, Vega interrupted, along with his notorious father, who sadly fell trying to save him. He gestured toward the papers on the table. These documents you so eagerly sought, carefully prepared forgeries. The real agreements are already safely delivered to our associates in Santa Fe. Cole's eyes met Josh's briefly, a silent communication father to son. Be ready. In the gold mine, Cole asked, shifting his weight subtly. The development plans proceeding as scheduled, Vega confirmed with a thin smile. By this time next month, the Apache problem will be eliminated, mining operations will be underway, and civilization will advance another step into the wilderness. He sighed theatrically. Progress is often painful for those who resist it. Enough talk, Hendris growled, drawing his revolver. Time to finish this. Cole tensed, prepared to launch himself at Hendris to give Josh a chance to escape, when a blood-curdling war cry shattered the night. One of the guards by the window suddenly sprouted an arrow in his throat, collapsing with a gurgling scream. Carmen and her warriors had arrived. Chaos erupted. Cole tackled Josh to the floor as gunfire erupted from all directions. Vega's men returned fire through windows, while Hendris ducked behind an overturned table shouting orders. The lanterns shattered, plunging the room into darkness, broken only by muzzle flashes. Stay down, Cole commanded, covering Josh with his body as bullets splintered wood around them. A shadow moved beside them, Maria materializing from whatever hiding place she'd found when the trap was sprung. This way, she hissed, indicating a trap door beneath a ragged carpet. Cole helped Josh toward the opening, while Maria provided covering fire with a revolver taken from a fallen guard. The trapdoor led to a root cellar, and beyond that a narrow tunnel, likely used for smuggling during the trading post's more active days. Carmen creates distraction, Maria explained as they crawled through the confined space. We escape, regroup. Behind them, the sounds of battle continued, gunshots shouting the distinctive thud of hand-to-hand combat. Carmen was giving them time, but at what cost? The tunnel emerged in a dry creek bed 50 yards from the trading post. Cole helped Josh up the bank, checking him quickly for injuries. I'm okay, Josh insisted, though blood seeped from a cut on his forehead, debris from the gunfight rather than a bullet wound. We need to help Carmen, Maria said, already turning back toward the trading post where muzzle flashes still illuminated windows. Cole grabbed her arm. Wait, listen. The gunfire had changed pattern, more organized volleys replacing the chaotic exchange of moments before. New voices shouted commands in the parade ground cadence of military training. Soldiers, Cole realized. Edwards's men must have been nearby. We have to go back, Maria insisted, struggling against his grip. Carmen is either already gone or captured, Cole finished grimly, and we will be too if we don't move now. The anguish in Maria's face was palpable, but her warrior's discipline prevailed. With a curt nod, she turned away from the trading post, leading them into the cover of a juniper thicket as the sounds of combat faded behind them. They moved quickly through the darkness, putting distance between themselves and the trading post. When they finally paused to rest in the shelter of a rocky overhang, the full impact of their failure settled over them. They knew, Josh said, voice hollow with disbelief. They were waiting for us. Someone betrayed us, Maria confirmed, her expression hardening. Someone close. Cole examined the medallion Elena had given him, its silver surface now stained with blood, his own or someone else's, he couldn't tell. Elena's sources, her confidence in the information. You suspect Elena, Maria's tone was dangerous. I suspect everyone, Cole replied evenly. It's how I've stayed alive. Josh winced as he attempted to stanch his bleeding forehead. What about the sanctuary if they knew our plans for tonight? The implication hung in the air like smoke. If their raid plan had been compromised, the location of the Apache sanctuary might be compromised as well. Maria came to the same conclusion, her face paling beneath its copper tone. We must warn them. Now. They set off immediately, abandoning caution for speed. Maria led them cross-country, taking shortcuts too dangerous to attempt, except in dire emergency, narrow ledges, steep ravines, treacherous scree slopes that threatened to give way beneath their feet. Dawn was breaking as they approached the hidden valley entrance, painting the cliffs in false serenity. No sounds of battle reached them, no smell of gunpowder tainted the air. Perhaps they had arrived in time. Something's wrong, Maria said, suddenly freezing in mid-stride. The guard rocks are disturbed. Cole saw two subtle signs that the carefully arranged stones marking the secret entrance had been moved recently, not by those who knew their significance, but by outsiders. Soldiers, Josh whispered. Or Hendriss's men, Cole replied grimly. Either way, we approach with extreme caution. They circled wide using a secondary entrance. Maria identified a narrow chimney in the cliff face that required difficult climbing to access. From this elevated position, they could survey the entire valley without exposing themselves. The scene below froze the blood in Cole's veins. The Apache settlement was eerily quiet, wickiups standing open belongings, scattered cooking fires cold. No children played, no women worked, no warriors stood guard. The sanctuary lay abandoned. They're gone, Josh whispered. All of them. Not gone, Maria corrected, her voice tight with controlled emotion. She pointed to the far end of the valley where disturbed earth marked several long mounds. Some will never leave this place again. Cole scanned the valley with experienced eyes, reading the signs of what had occurred. Soldiers came. Not a full-scale attack, a raid precision. They knew exactly where to strike. Survivors, Josh asked, dreading the answer. Some escaped. Cole indicated tracks leading toward the high mountain pass. Others were taken prisoner. His jaw tightened as he noted drag marks, bloodstains. Not gently. Maria had gone very still, her face a mask of controlled grief and rage. Carmen, Cole couldn't lie to her. No way to know for certain, but there are signs of significant resistance near the central fire pit. Hand-to-hand combat. Blood. She would not be taken alive, Maria said with quiet certainty. They descended carefully into the valley, alert for any signs of soldiers remaining behind. The sanctuary lay in eerie silence, broken only by the wind sighing through empty dwellings. At the central fire pit, Maria knelt beside a darkened bloodstain, touching it with reverent fingers. My sister fought here, she confirmed, grief briefly overcoming her stoic demeanor. Her knife. She lifted a distinctive blade from beneath a trampled blanket, its handle carved with symbols of her clan. Cole gave her space for this moment of mourning, turning his attention to tracking the soldiers' movements. The signs told a clear story, a coordinated pre-dawn raid, multiple entry points, disciplined troops moving with precise objectives. Not the chaotic violence of Hendriss's mercenaries, but the surgical efficiency of professional soldiers. Edwards's men, he concluded. They divided their forces, some to the trading post to deal with us, the main body here to strike the sanctuary. But how did they find it? Josh asked, examining the scattered belongings of families who had fled in panic. This place was hidden for generations. The same way they knew our plans, Cole replied grimly. Betrayal. A sound from one of the wickiups snapped them to alertness, a faint groan nearly inaudible. Cole approached cautiously, knife ready, gesturing for the others to provide cover. Inside the dwelling lay Grizzly Joe, badly wounded but alive. Blood matted his wild beard, and more had soaked through crude bandages around his midsection. Cole knelt beside his old friend. What happened? Joe's eyes fluttered open, recognition dawning slowly. Cole thought you were at the trading post. Trap, Cole explained tersely, examining Joe's wounds. Soldiers came here instead, Joe nodded weakly. Before dawn, knew exactly where to hit us. He coughed, blood speckling his lips. Carmen fought, like a demon. Took 3 of them, before they brought her down. Maria knelt on Joe's other side, her face taut with barely controlled emotion. My sister, she is dead. Joe's expression answered before his words could. Saw her fall, wouldn't surrender. Brave woman, bravest I ever saw. Maria closed her eyes briefly, absorbing the blow. When she opened them, something had hardened in her gaze, grief crystallizing into deadly purpose. The others, Cole pressed gently. Elena, the children. Some escaped. North Pass. Others captured. Joe winced as Josh helped him sit up slightly. Elena, they took her alive. Wanted her knowledge. Of the gold cave. Cole and Maria exchanged glances. If Elena revealed the location of the gold deposit, the final piece of Hendris and Vega's plan would fall into place. We need to rescue the prisoners, Maria said firmly, before they reach Fort Bowie. With what army? Josh asked, looking around the devastated sanctuary. It's just the four of us, and Joe's in no condition to fight. Don't count me out yet, boy, Joe managed a ghost of his former grin. Still got one good shooting hand. Cole helped Joe drink from a water-skinned mind, racing through options. The situation seemed hopeless. Their allies scattered or captured their evidence, lost a military force hunting them with the full authority of the government behind them. There's still a way, he said finally, but it's desperate. Desperate is all we have left, Maria replied. Cole nodded toward the cave entrance, visible across the valley, the sacred site hiding the gold deposit that had triggered this entire bloody sequence of events. We use what they want most against them, he explained. The gold. The real documentation must be with Edwards. Now military orders, agreements with Vega's company, everything needed to prove the conspiracy. Josh caught on immediately. We offer a trade. The location of the gold mine for the prisoners and the documents. Hendris and Vega would never agree, Maria objected. Why bargain when they can simply take what they want? Because they don't know where the main deposit is, Cole pointed out. The cave Elena showed us was just the surface outcropping. The mother lode must be deeper. Joe coughed again, weaker now. There's a network of tunnels, miles of them. Only Elena knows the true path. And Elena wouldn't break even under torture, Maria added, understanding dawning. She would die first. Exactly, Cole confirmed, which gives us leverage, the only leverage we have left. Josh looked skeptical. Hendris struck me as the type to take his chances with torture rather than negotiate. Hendris, yes, Cole agreed. But Vega represents Eastern investors, mining companies, businessmen who care about profit margins, timetables, return on investment. They won't want to waste months searching tunnels that might lead nowhere. Maria considered the plan, her expression thoughtful despite her grief. How do we make contact? They will shoot us on sight. Not if we approach under flag of truce, Cole replied, and not if we bring something they want even more than the gold mine location. What could possibly be more valuable to them? Josh asked. Cole's weathered face hardened with determination. Me, the man who started all this, the manhunter who became their nightmare. Understanding dawned in Josh's eyes. Dad, no, they'll kill you. Maybe, Cole acknowledged it, but they'll listen first, and listening is all we need. As they discussed the details of this desperate gambit, none of them noticed the small object half buried in the dirt near Joe's wickiup, a silver compass case identical to the one Josh had discovered in his satchel, the tracking device that had led soldiers to their previous location, and to their current one. The manhunter was about to become the hunted one final time. Fort Bowie squatted against the landscape like an invader, its adobe walls and wooden watchtowers proclaiming military authority over land that had belonged to the Apache for centuries. Established during the earlier Apache Wars, it had grown from a crude outpost to a permanent installation, housing several companies of soldiers, their families, and the administrative machinery of territorial control. Cole Walker had once been welcome at Fort Bowie, his skills as a tracker and manhunter, valued by commanders fighting an elusive enemy. Now he approached as that enemy, keenly aware of the rifle barrels that would track his movement from the moment he was spotted. This is insanity, Josh protested again as they prepared for Cole's approach. They had established a camp in a hidden ravine 5 miles from the fort, close enough for their purposes, but beyond regular patrol routes. They'll shoot you before you can speak. Not under a white flag, Cole replied, tying a piece of Maria's torn undershirt to a branch. Military protocol. They'll at least hear me out. And if Hendris or Vega overrides that protocol, then you'll have witnessed a war crime to report in your Tribune article. Cole checked his revolver one final time before handing it to Josh. Approaching unarmed adds credibility to the truce. Maria watched silently, her grief for Carmen transformed into a focused intensity that made her more formidable than ever. Since discovering her sister's fate, she had spoken little, but her presence had become somehow larger, as if she carried Carmen's spirit alongside her own. The plan doesn't change if I don't return, Cole reminded them unnecessarily. You take Joe north, find Elena and the other survivors. Get Josh's evidence to the nearest telegraph office outside Hendriss's influence. And abandon you. Josh's voice cracked slightly. After I just found you again, Cole gripped his son's shoulder. I spent 20 years putting duty before family, Josh. Let me put family before duty just this once. The simple statement, so unlike the cold manhunter of legend, left Josh speechless. Maria stepped forward, placing a hand on Cole's arm. We wait until sundown, she said firmly. If you have not returned or sent word by then, we follow the rescue plan. Cole nodded agreement. Fair enough. Take this, Maria pressed something into his palm. Carmen's distinctive knife, its handle warm from being carried close to Maria's body. My sister would want her blade to draw blood in this fight. Cole accepted the weapon with appropriate solemnity, concealing it in his boot, the one place soldiers might not search thoroughly if they respected the flag of truce. With a final nod to Josh and Maria, he mounted his horse and rode toward Fort Bowie, white flag held high. The mid-morning sun cast harsh light across the landscape, eliminating shadows where enemies might hide. Cole made no attempt at concealment, following the main trail directly toward the fort's gates. When he came within rifle range, a warning shot kicked up dust near his horse's hooves. That's far enough, called a voice from the watchtower. Identify yourself. Cole Walker, he shouted back. Here under flag of truce to speak with Colonel Edwards regarding prisoners taken at Apache Canyon. A buzz of activity followed his announcement. Several minutes passed before the gates opened, revealing a lieutenant with 6 soldiers, all with rifles at the ready. Dismount slowly, the lieutenant ordered. Hands where we can see them. Cole complied, keeping movements deliberate. I'm unarmed except for this knife, he indicated his boot, as a gesture of good faith. 2 soldiers searched him thoroughly, removing Carmen's knife and examining him for hidden weapons. Satisfied, they escorted him through the gates into the fort proper. Fort Bowie hummed with unusual activity, soldiers drilling, supply wagons being loaded, horses saddled for patrol. Preparations for a major operation. Cole was led to the commander's office, a Spartan room dominated by maps of Apache territory with red pins marking key locations. Behind the desk sat Colonel Edwards, a square-jawed career officer with the cold eyes of an ambitious man willing to sacrifice whatever necessary for advancement. The infamous Cole Walker, Edwards observed without rising. Your reputation precedes you. As does yours, Colonel, Cole replied evenly. Your effectiveness against hostile tribes is well documented. Edwards accepted the ambiguous compliment with a thin smile. You've come about the Apache prisoners. Why? To propose an exchange, Cole said simply. Their freedom for something of far greater value. And what might that be? Information only I possess. The location of the Motherlode gold deposit in Apache Canyon. Edwards leaned back, studying Cole with calculated interest. An intriguing offer. Unfortunately, I'm not authorized to negotiate with enemies of the United States. Then I'll speak with those who can negotiate, Cole countered. Jim Hendriss, Miguel Vega, the men you're really working for. The colonel's expression hardened. You presume much, Walker. No presumption. I was at the trading post. Heard Vega mention your name specifically. The accommodating replacement for Captain Lewis. Before Edwards could respond, the office door opened to admit Jim Hendriss and the immaculate Miguel Vega, their arrival clearly not coincidental. Hendriss's face darkened with anger when he saw Cole, while Vega maintained his customary composure. What's he doing here? Hendriss demanded. He should be in chains, or better yet, hanging. Mr. Walker has come under flag of truce, Edwards explained coolly, with an interesting proposition. I'm listening, Vega said before Hendriss could object further. Cole assessed the room's dynamics carefully before speaking. Edwards was the military authority, but clearly deferential to Vega, who represented greater power. Hendriss, despite his local influence, was merely the front man, important enough to be included, but not to decide. The gold deposit you're seeking, Cole began, addressing Vega directly. The one that justified this entire operation. I know its exact location. As does the Apache woman, Hendris interrupted dismissively. She'll talk eventually. Elena will die before revealing its location, Cole replied with certainty. And the network of caves in that canyon system could take years to explore completely. He focused on Vega. Time your investors haven't allocated in their development schedule, I imagine. Something flickered in Vega's composed features, a businessman recognizing both threat and opportunity. You're offering this information in exchange for the Apache prisoners, Vega summarized. Rather sentimental for a manhunter of your reputation, Walker. Not sentiment, practicality. Cole maintained eye contact. The Apache aren't your real objective. The gold is. The land development, the railroad contracts. Why waste resources fighting natives when you can achieve your primary goal immediately? An interesting perspective, Vega conceded. But what guarantee do we have that your information is accurate or complete? I'll guide you there personally, Cole offered him. You'll see the deposit with your own eyes before releasing any prisoners. Hendris laughed harshly. And then what? We just let you and a band of Apache warriors disappear into the mountains to fight another day? I don't think so. Not warriors, Cole clarified. Women, children, elders, non-combatants only. They go north out of the territory entirely. You get your gold, your railroad, your development, everything you wanted without the messy complications of a prolonged Apache conflict. Colonel Edwards frowned thoughtfully. My orders are to pacify the region completely. A partial solution. Your orders come from men who want profit, not military glory. Cole interrupted, gambling on his assessment of the power dynamics. Men who care more about quarterly returns than body counts. His gaze returned to Vega. Isn't that right? Vega's thin smile confirmed Cole's read of the situation. Colonel Edwards's primary mission remains unchanged. However, expediting certain economic objectives would certainly please my associates. You can't seriously be considering this, Hendris protested. Walker is playing for time, nothing more. Perhaps, Vega agreed smoothly, but time has different values to different men. He turned to Cole. Your offer is interesting but incomplete. In addition to the gold deposit location, we would require your complete surrender. You've become rather inconvenient to our operations. Cole had anticipated this demand. My surrender in exchange for my son's freedom as well. Josh Walker leaves with the Apache unharmed, all his belongings intact. The journalist, Edwards asked sharply. Absolutely not. His notes, his documentation, mean nothing without me to corroborate them, Cole finished. A grieving son making wild accusations to avenge his father's death, easily dismissed as frontier fantasy. Vega considered this logic, then nodded slowly. Your terms are acceptable with one addition. The Apache woman Maria dos Santos. She remains in custody. Cole's expression betrayed nothing, though the demand struck hard. Maria represented not just a potential threat to their operations, but a symbolic victory, one of the legendary giants, captured, proving the Army's dominance. Maria goes free with the others, Cole insisted, or there's no deal. Non-negotiable, Vega replied coldly. She has led resistance too long, become too powerful a symbol. Her sister died rather than surrender a martyr's death that already inflames Apache sentiment. Maria dos Santos must stand trial, be seen receiving white man's justice. The true purpose was clear, a public execution to break Apache spirit permanently. Cole hesitated, calculating options. Maria would never agree to sacrifice herself even for her people's freedom. Yet without this agreement, all would be lost. I need to consult with my associates, Cole said finally. Bring my answer tomorrow. No, Edwards stated flatly. You've entered under truce. You leave under arrest or with an agreement. No middle ground. Cole recognized the trap closing. He'd gambled on being able to return to Josh and Maria to form a new plan. Now that avenue was cut off. Then I need assurance the prisoners are alive and unharmed, he countered. I see them first, confirm their condition, then make my decision. Edwards glanced at Vega, who nodded permission. Very well. Lieutenant, escort Mr. Walker to the stockade. Limited contact with prisoners only. The stockade occupied the fort's northwest corner, a log-walled enclosure with minimal shelter against the elements. Inside, perhaps 30 Apache prisoners huddled in small groups, mostly women, children, and elderly. Armed guards patrolled the perimeter, rifles ready. Cole scanned the faces, recognizing many from the sanctuary. They appeared physically unharmed, but dazed with shock and grief. Near the far wall, a familiar figure sat straight-backed, despite her advanced age, Elena surrounded by a protective circle of younger women. Under the lieutenant's watchful eye, Cole approached the medicine woman. Her face showed new lines of sorrow, but her eyes remained clear and dignified. "Cole Walker," she greeted him in a voice soft but unbroken. "You live." "As do you," he replied, kneeling to her level. "Are you being treated fairly?" "They need me alive," Elena said simply. "The others?" She gestured subtly toward a young woman whose bruised face told a different story. "They ask many questions. About the gold, about Maria, about you." Cole nodded, understanding. "I've come to negotiate your freedom for the gold location and my surrender." Elena studied him with ancient wisdom. "A trade they will never honor." "I know," Cole admitted quietly, "but it buys time, gets you out of this fort." "To what purpose? Our sanctuary destroyed, our protectors killed or captured." Elena's gaze intensified. "And Maria, what of her?" Cole hesitated. "They demand she remain prisoner." "Ah." Elena closed her eyes briefly. "So they can hang the last giant, complete their story of conquest." "I haven't agreed," Cole assured her. "I'm still working on a plan." Elena's weathered hand found his surprisingly strong. "The divided heart makes difficult choices, Cole Walker. Remember the medallion I gave you? Paths crossing change both travelers." Before Cole could ask what she meant, the lieutenant called time. With a final reassuring nod to Elena, Cole returned to his escort, mind racing. He needed to communicate with Josh, and Maria warned them of the changed situation, but saw no opportunity with guards watching his every move. Back in Edwards' office, the three architects of Apache destruction awaited his decision. "Well," Vega prompted, "having seen the prisoners, do we have an agreement?" Cole feigned reluctance, playing for time. "I need guarantees. Written assurances the prisoners will be released unharmed, transported north beyond territorial jurisdiction." "Of course," Vega agreed smoothly. "Colonel Edwards will prepare the necessary documents. And my son goes free with all his possessions, provided he signs a statement renouncing his previous accusations." Hendricks inserted, earning a sharp glance from Vega. "Fine," Cole conceded, knowing Josh would sign anything under duress while believing none of it. "When do we leave for the gold deposit?" "First light tomorrow," Edwards decided. "A small detachment, you, myself, Mr. Vega, and a squad of my best men." "Hendricks comes too," Cole insisted, surprising them. "Since he's so invested in this venture." Hendricks puffed up with self-importance while Vega and Edwards exchanged subtle glances of annoyance. Perfect. The more divided their attention, the better Cole's chances of finding an opportunity. "Agreed," Vega said finally. "Until tomorrow, Mr. Walker will be housed comfortably, but under guard. Standard procedure for honored guests." Cole recognized the euphemism for what it was. He would be a prisoner, albeit one too valuable to mistreat. As soldiers escorted him to a small room in the officers' quarters, he observed every detail of the fort's layout, guard positions, routines. Information that might prove crucial in the hours ahead. The room they provided was sparse but decent, a cot wash basin and barred window overlooking the parade ground. Two guards were stationed outside the door, another patrolled beneath the window. No obvious escape route, exactly as expected. Cole sat on the gate, removing his boots as if preparing to rest. Carefully, he extracted a small object from a hidden compartment in the boot heel, a polished stone Elena had given him months ago, claiming it allowed Apache shamans to send thoughts across distances. He had accepted it out of respect rather than belief, but now found himself turning it over in his fingers, concentrating on an image of Maria and Josh, willing them to understand the danger. Foolishness, perhaps. But in this desperate moment, even foolish hopes seemed worth embracing. As the afternoon waned into evening, Cole was brought a meal better fare than the prisoners received, another reminder of his special status. He ate mechanically, mind-focused on the impossible task ahead. Leading Vega and Edwards to a false location might buy time, but inevitably they would discover the deception. The Apache prisoners would pay the price, as would Josh if he were captured. Night fell across Fort Bowie lanterns, illuminating the parade ground, where soldiers continued preparations for tomorrow's expedition. Cole watched through the barred window, noting the positioning of sentries, the location of the ammunition storehouse, the corral where horses were kept. Details a manhunter absorbed automatically, whether planning capture or escape. A soft scratching at his door interrupted these observations. The guard's voice followed, unusually quiet. "Walker, visitor." The door opened to admit a figure Cole didn't immediately recognize. A young Apache woman in servant's clothing, head bowed submissively, carrying fresh towels. The guard winked suggestively. "Special delivery from the colonel." He figured even a prisoner deserves certain comforts before possibly dying tomorrow. The guard chuckled. 15 minutes. Don't wear her out." The door closed, leaving Cole alone with the young woman, who immediately straightened, transformation visible in her bearing. Though dressed as a servant, her eyes held warrior's intelligence. "You know Maria," she stated, rather than asked, voice barely above a whisper. Cole nodded, instantly alert. "You're from the sanctuary." "I work in the fort kitchen." Many Apache do, invisible to white eyes. She placed the towels on the washstand, using the movement to cover her next words. "Maria and your son are nearby. They have a plan." Cole's pulse quickened. "What plan?" "Tonight. Fire in the ammunition storehouse. When soldiers respond, attack from outside." Her eyes conveyed both determination and fear. "Many will die, but some will live." "A direct assault on the fort is suicide," Cole protested quietly. "The soldiers are too many, too well armed." "Not assault, confusion." She made a circular gesture. "Apache come from all directions. Small groups, much noise. Soldiers think large attack, divide forces." The strategy was sound, if desperate. Create the illusion of a major offensive while actually executing a targeted rescue operation. Something Maria would devise, combining Apache tactics with the Dos Santos sisters' flair for psychological warfare. When Cole asked, "Midnight, watch for fire signal." The young woman moved toward the door. "Be ready." After she left, Cole returned to the window, mind racing through implications. Maria and Josh were attempting an incredibly dangerous rescue rather than accepting the dubious safety of Cole's negotiated surrender. If they succeeded, some prisoners might escape in the chaos. If they failed, all would likely die, including Cole himself once his usefulness ended. Hours passed with excruciating slowness. Cole lay on his cot, feigning sleep whenever guards checked on him, while actually preparing for whatever opportunity arose. He fashioned a garrote from threads pulled from his blanket, twisted and reinforced. From the metal rim of the wash basin, he pried a small shard sharp enough to serve as a makeshift knife. Minimal weapons, but better than nothing. As midnight approached, unusual activity rippled through the fort. Additional sentries posted, officers conferring in low voices. Cole's heartbeat quickened. Had Maria's plan been discovered? Were they preparing for the expected attack? The answer came minutes later. 3 rapid gunshots from the direction of the main gate, followed by shouted orders. Not discovery of the attack plan, but something else. Through his window, Cole watched soldiers assembling in the parade ground, torches illuminating a rider who had apparently arrived with urgent news. Colonel Edwards emerged from his quarters, fully dressed despite the late hour. The messenger delivered his report, gesturing emphatically toward the mountains. Edwards's response was immediate, barked orders that sent soldiers scrambling to battle positions. False information delivered to trigger premature defensive measures, Cole realized. The first phase of Maria's plan, drawing soldiers away from their normal posts, creating gaps in the fort's security. Within minutes, the predicted fire erupted, not at the ammunition storehouse, but at the stables, sending panicked horses charging through the fort, adding to the confusion. Simultaneously, war cries echoed from multiple directions outside the walls, creating the impression of a substantial attacking force. Cole's door burst open, revealing his guard. "On your feet. Walker under attack." "Apache," Cole asked, feigning confusion as he stood. "Who else?" The guard grabbed his arm roughly. "Colonel wants you secured in the command post. Insurance against your Apache friends." "Perfect. The command post would provide better visibility, more tactical options than this isolated room." Cole allowed himself to be hustled across the parade ground, now in chaos, as soldiers attempted to corral escaped horses while responding to the apparent attack. The command post occupied a central position, a 2-story building with Edwards' office on the ground floor and a watchtower above. Inside, Edwards barked orders to messengers, while Vega observed with obvious displeasure. Hendricks paced nervously, his earlier bravado replaced by genuine fear. "Secure him there," Edwards ordered, indicating a support beam. Cole's guard bound his hands behind the post tight enough to prevent escape, but not to cause injury. Still valuable, still needed tomorrow, regardless of tonight's outcome. "Is this your doing?" Vega demanded, approaching Cole with cold fury. "A pathetic rescue attempt." "Looks more like Apache vengeance to me," Cole replied calmly. "For the women and children you have imprisoned, for Carmen dos Santos, who died rather than surrender." Vega's composure slipped slightly at the mention of Carmen. "One savage down, one to go. Your Maria will join her sister soon enough." The possessive "your Maria" caught Cole off guard, revealing more about Vega's perception than perhaps intended. Before he could analyze this, a tremendous explosion rocked the fort, much larger than a simple fire, suggesting ammunition had indeed been reached by the flames. "Status report," Edwards shouted to a lieutenant who staggered in, face blackened with smoke. "Stables destroyed, sir. Ammunition wagon caught in the blaze. East wall breached by explosion. Multiple Apache warriors reported inside the perimeter." "Inside?" Edwards's face darkened with professional outrage. "How many?" "Reports unclear, sir. Estimates range from 10 to 50. "Impossible," Edwards dismissed. "There aren't 50 Apache warriors within 100 miles. They're scattered, broken." "Apparently not scattered enough," Cole observed dryly, earning a glare from the colonel. "Secure the prisoners," Edwards ordered. "Double the stockade guard. That's their objective." As the lieutenant departed to relay these commands, a new commotion erupted outside, gunfire followed by the distinctive sound of hand-to-hand combat. The command post door burst open, admitting two soldiers supporting a third, who clutched a bloody shoulder. "Apache giants!" the wounded man gasped. "Two of them, 7 feet tall at least." Hendricks paled visibly, while Vega's expression shifted from dismissive to concerned. "Nonsense," Edwards snapped. "One dos Santos woman is dead. The other?" "There." The wounded soldier pointed through the window where a tall, distinctive silhouette passed briefly through torchlight. "See for yourself." The figure was indeed remarkably tall, moving with the fluid grace associated with the legendary Apache giants. A second similar figure appeared briefly near the stockade, engaged in combat with guards. "Two of them," Hendricks whispered, terror evident in his voice. "How is that possible?" Cole suppressed a smile as understanding dawned. Not two Apache giants, a brilliant illusion. Maria's distinctive silhouette would be recognizable, but the second giant was likely Josh on stilts, or elevated footwear draped in similar clothing. From a distance, in chaotic darkness, punctuated by firelight, the deception would be convincing enough to sow precisely this kind of fear and confusion. "Get men to the stockade immediately," Edwards commanded. "Shoot the Apache women on sight." As soldiers rushed to comply, Cole worked silently at his bonds, using the rough wood of the support beam to fray the ropes. The command post had emptied except for Vega, Hendricks, and a single guard watching Cole while keeping anxious eyes on the window. Outside, the carefully orchestrated chaos continued, small fires burning at strategic points, sporadic gunfire, war cries echoing from different directions to suggest a larger force. Classic Apache tactics, maximizing impact with minimal numbers. A new sound cut through the din, 3 distinct whistle blasts followed by 2 longer ones. A signal and one Cole recognized from his time with Maria. The rescue party had reached the stockade, freed at least some prisoners. Now came the most dangerous phase, extraction under fire. Cole redoubled his efforts on the ropes, feeling strands beginning to give. The guard had moved to the window, attention focused on the battle outside rather than his prisoner. Vega noticed Cole's efforts, however, approaching with calculated menace. "Your Apache friends are creating quite a disturbance, Walker. Impressive, but ultimately futile." He leaned closer, voice dropping to ensure Hendricks couldn't overhear. "When this is over, I'll personally ensure Maria dos Santos suffers before she dies. Slowly, intimately, while you watch." The threat delivered with such casual cruelty triggered something primal in Cole. With a final desperate effort, he snapped the weakened ropes, lunging forward to slam his forehead into Vega's face with bone-crushing force. Vega staggered backward, blood streaming from a shattered nose. The guard turned at the commotion, raising his rifle, but Cole was already moving, grabbing Vega's ornate walking stick and driving it into the guard's midsection. As the man doubled over, Cole delivered a precise strike to the temple, rendering him unconscious. Hendra scrambled for the door, shouting for help. Cole intercepted him, driving a shoulder into the larger man's chest and sending them both crashing into Edwards's desk. Papers scattered, a lantern toppled, spilling oil that ignited immediately. "Fire!" Hendra screamed, genuine terror replacing his usual bluster. "Help!" Cole grabbed the fallen guard's revolver, checking that it was loaded. 6 shots, limited ammunition, but enough for his purposes. "On your feet," he ordered Vega, who was struggling to stand blood, soaking his immaculate suit. "Both of you, we're going to join the party outside." "You'll never escape," Vega managed through broken teeth. "The fort is sealed." "Not for long," Cole replied, gesturing toward the spreading fire that now engulfed one wall of the command post. "Fire has a way of opening doors." Using Hendricks and Vega as shields, Cole forced them outside into the chaos-filled parade ground. Soldiers ran in all directions, addressing multiple threats, fires, apparent breaches in the perimeter, the ongoing battle at the stockade. In the confusion, a man with prisoners might just be assumed to be following orders. "Move toward the east gate," Cole directed, pressing the revolver into Hendricks' back. "Normal pace. Anyone asks, you're evacuating important prisoners under Colonel's orders." They crossed the parade ground, passing soldiers too preoccupied to question them. The command post fire had spread to adjacent buildings, creating a useful diversion. Approaching the stockade, Cole witnessed the fruits of Maria's plan, the gates standing open, guards lying incapacitated. "Not dead," he noted with approval, and a stream of Apache prisoners hurrying toward the breach in the east wall. At the stockade entrance stood Maria herself, directing the evacuation with calm efficiency. Beside her, Josh helped elderly prisoners move faster, his face smudged with ash, but eyes bright with exhilaration. Both were dressed to create the giant illusion Maria, in her natural impressive height, Josh with some form of improvised stilts beneath flowing Apache garments. Maria spotted Cole with his captive's surprise briefly crossing her features before transforming into grim satisfaction. She dispatched the last group of escapees before approaching. "You brought guests?" she observed dryly, eyeing Hendricks and Vega with undisguised contempt. "Insurance," Cole explained. "Where's Elena?" "Already through the breach with the first group." Maria studied Vega's bloodied face with appreciation. "You started without me." "He mentioned planning special attention for you," Cole replied. "I expressed my disapproval." Josh joined them, awkwardly maneuvering on his disguised stilts. "Dad, we thought you were—" He broke off, recognizing Hendricks. "You make it here later," Cole cautioned, but aware that their window of opportunity was shrinking by the second. "We need to move now." Maria nodded agreement. "Most prisoners are clear. Joe's waiting with horses beyond the east wall." "You'll never make it," Vega spat, blood spraying with his words. "Edwards will hunt you to the ends of the earth." "Possibly," Cole acknowledged. "But first he'll need to explain how he lost control of his fort, his prisoners, and his business partners." He emphasized the last words, the implication clear. Edwards's career would not survive this night's disaster. As if summoned by his name, Colonel Edwards appeared across the parade ground, rallying soldiers for a counterattack. He spotted Cole's group, instantly raising his service revolver. "Take cover!" Cole shouted, shoving Josh and Maria toward the stockade wall as Edwards fired. The bullet struck Hendricks in the shoulder, spinning the big man with its impact. Cole returned fire, forcing Edwards to seek protection behind a water barrel. More soldiers appeared, drawn by the gunfire, taking positions around the parade ground. "Go," Cole ordered Maria and Josh. "Get to the breach. I'll cover you." "Not without you," Josh protested. "I'll be right behind you," Cole promised, knowing it might be a lie. Maria hesitated only briefly before grabbing Josh's arm. "He'll follow. Trust him." As they retreated toward the east wall, Cole maintained covering fire, using his remaining bullets judiciously to keep soldiers pinned down. Hendricks had collapsed, clutching his wounded shoulder and moaning pitifully. Vega attempted to flee, but found himself trapped between Cole's gun and advancing soldiers, neither side particularly concerned with his safety. With only 2 bullets remaining, Cole began his own retreat, backing toward the breach while keeping Vega before him as a shield. Edwards shouted orders, positioning men to cut off escape routes, but the ongoing fires and confusion hampered coordinated response. The breach appeared ahead, a ragged hole in the fort's east wall, where the ammunition explosion had destroyed a section of palisade. Beyond it, darkness promised at least temporary safety. Cole could see Josh waiting anxiously just outside while Maria covered the escape route with a captured rifle. 20 yards to freedom. 15. 10. A rifle crack split the night. Vega jerked violently, a bullet meant for Cole striking him instead. He crumpled, without a sound, instantly dead. Cole dived the remaining distance to the breach as more shots followed, splinters flying from the wooden wall around him. He rolled through the opening, coming up in a defensive position beside Maria. "Everyone clear," he gasped. "All prisoners accounted for," Maria confirmed. "Moving north with Elena now." "Then let's not overstay our welcome." Cole followed as Maria and Josh led the way into darkness, leaving Fort Bowie in flames behind them. Half a mile from the fort, Grizzly Joe waited with horses, his injuries apparently insufficient to keep him from participating in the rescue. Despite his weakened condition, he grinned broadly at their approach. "Told you Walker was too ornery to die," he called to Elena, who sat atop a pony nearby, surrounded by the rescued prisoners. "I never doubted," the medicine woman replied serenely, though relief showed clearly in her eyes as she counted the returning party. They mounted quickly, Joe leading the main group of escapees north toward the territorial border, while Cole, Maria, Josh, and 2 Apache warriors took a different trail east toward the sunrise in the nearest telegraph office beyond Hendriss's influence. As they rode through the night, Josh recounted the rescue plan's development, how Maria had identified sympathizers among Apache workers at the fort, how they had created the two giants illusion to maximize psychological impact, how Joe had coordinated diversionary fires despite his injuries. "And Elena's stone worked," Josh added, producing the polished stone Cole had been given. "She said you'd send thoughts through it, warn us of the trap. That's why we didn't wait for your return." Cole stared at the stone, momentarily speechless. Had his desperate concentration actually transmitted some warning? Or had Elena simply known the negotiation would be a trap from the beginning? Maria caught his expression, a rare smile softening her features. "Some mysteries remain. Mysteries, Cole Walker, even for manhunters." As dawn broke over the eastern mountains, they paused to rest the horses and assess their situation. Fort Bowie lay far behind them now, but pursuit would inevitably follow once Edwards reorganized his forces. They had perhaps a day's head start enough to reach the telegraph office in Lordsburg if they pushed hard. "What happens after the telegraph?" Josh asked, already mentally composing his explosive article. "Edwards, Hendriss, whoever replaces Vega, they won't simply surrender." "No," Cole agreed, "but they'll face questions from authorities they can't control. Military investigations, congressional inquiries, newspaper exposés." He nodded toward Josh's ever-present satchel. "Your evidence, combined with statements from the Apache survivors, creates a story too big to bury." "In the gold mine?" Maria asked quietly. "My people's sacred place." Cole considered this carefully. "Remains your secret to keep or share. Your decision, not mine." Maria studied him thoughtfully. "You could claim it, become wealthy beyond dreams." "Some prices are too high," Cole replied simply, "even for a manhunter." As they prepared to continue their journey, Cole found himself watching Maria, her strength, her dignity, her unwavering commitment to her people. Something had changed between them during this ordeal, something neither had anticipated nor sought. Like the medallion Elena had given him, their paths had crossed and changed both travelers. The manhunter had become something else entirely. And the future, for the first time in decades, held possibilities beyond the next bounty, the next target, the next lonely campfire. But first, they had to outrun the storm. They had unleashed a storm that would reshape the territory forever. The telegraph office in Lordsburg occupied a small corner of the town's only hotel, a testament to civilization's tentative reach into frontier territory. Unlike Copper Creek, this settlement existed beyond Jim Hendriss's sphere of influence, a crucial factor in Cole's plan. The operator, a young man with ink-stained fingers and perpetually adjusted spectacles, looked up in surprise as 4 dust-covered riders dismounted outside his window. "Telegraph to Chicago," Josh announced without preamble, slapping a thick envelope on the counter. "Tribune newspaper. Urgent press dispatch." The operator blinked at the unusual request. "Chicago, that's expensive, multiple relays." "Price is no concern," Cole stated, placing gold coins beside the envelope. "Priority transmission. Every word exactly as written." While Josh negotiated the specifics, Cole and Maria maintained watch from the hotel porch, alert for any sign of pursuit. The Apache warriors who had accompanied them from Fort Bowie positioned themselves at strategic points, around Lordsburg's perimeter, prepared to provide early warning if Edwards's soldiers approached. "How long before your story reaches Chicago, bum?" Maria asked, her voice betraying rare uncertainty. "Telegraph transmission is near instantaneous," Cole explained, "but newspaper publication takes time. 24 hours minimum, more likely several days. And when it publishes," Cole considered the question carefully, "questions will be asked. Investigations launched. Military officials seeking to protect their reputations will distance them bushels from Edwards. Politicians will demand accountability." "But will it save my people?" Maria pressed, cutting to the heart of the matter. Cole met her gaze directly. "It's a beginning, not an end." The story creates a tension pressure. What happens next depends on how that pressure is applied. The truth was more complex than he could articulate. Josh's expose would indeed cause assemblation corrupt officials conspiring with business interests to manufacture an Apache threat, massacring innocent families to drive land prices down, military resources diverted for private profit. The public would be temporarily outraged, government inquiries promised. But history had taught Cole that such outrage rarely translated to justice for Native peoples. At best, it might result in reprimands for those directly involved. Perhaps Edwards's career ended, Hendriss's operations scrutinized. The larger machinery that enabled such exploitation would continue largely unchanged. Josh emerged from the telegraph office, face flushed with professional excitement. "Sent every word. The managing editor will have it within hours." "Good work, son," Cole acknowledged, pride evident, despite his reservations about the likely outcome. "Now we need distance between ourselves and Lordsburg before Edwards connects the dots." They resupplied quickly, ammunition, food canteens refilled for the journey ahead. Their destination lay northeast toward the territorial border, where Elena and the Apache survivors should have reached safety if Joe's guidance had proven true. As they prepared to depart, Josh hesitated, glancing toward the hotel's small dining room. "When did we last eat?" "We could take 10 minutes for a hot meal." Cole's instinct was to refuse to maintain momentum, but Maria surprised him by agreeing. 10 minutes. We need strength for what comes." Over simple but substantial fare, beef stew, fresh bread, strong coffee, Josh continued organizing his notes, already planning follow-up articles. His journalistic fervor had transformed the exhausted young man Cole had rescued from Fort Bowie into someone vibrant, purposeful, driven by conviction rather than resentment. "This story changes everything, Dad," Josh insisted between hurried bites. "Not just Hendriss and Edwards, the whole corrupt system." The Tribune's readership includes senators, cabinet members, influencers across the country. Cole nodded, unwilling to diminish his son's justified pride, yet unable to share his optimism. He had seen too many scandals erupt, flare briefly, then fade without substantive change. Still, Josh's passion deserved respect, particularly given the risks he had taken to document the truth. "You've done good work," Cole acknowledged. "Work that matters." "We all have," Josh replied, glancing at Maria with unmistakable admiration. "Especially Maria. Without her leadership, her courage." Maria accepted the praise with characteristic reserve, her attention seemingly focused on the street outside. But Cole noticed something soften briefly in her expression, a warrior allowing herself a moment's recognition of accomplishment before returning to vigilance. Their brief respite ended when one of the Apache scouts appeared at the doorway, signaling urgently. Maria interpreted his rapid Apache communication, her face darkening. "Riders approaching from the west. Military formation. 20, perhaps more." "Edwards," Cole concluded grimly. "Faster than expected." They abandoned their meal, mounting quickly and galloping east out of Lordsburg before the soldiers entered from the west. The timing had been fortunate. Minutes later would have meant capture. They rode hard through the afternoon, pushing their horses to sustainable limits while maintaining awareness of pursuit. The Apache scouts rejoined them, periodically reporting the soldiers' position, initially gaining ground due to fresher mounts, then falling back, as Edwards was forced to split his forces between pursuit and searching side trails where their quarry might have diverted. By evening, they had opened sufficient distance to risk a brief rest in a sheltered arroyo. While the horses recovered, Cole studied their map by fading light, tracing potential routes to the rendezvous point Joe had established for the Apache refugees. 2 paths forward, he explained, indicating alternatives. Northern route is longer but easier terrain. Eastern follows the old Apache smuggling trails, difficult passage but better concealment. My people took the northern route, Maria observed. Edwards will have men watching it by now. East then, Cole decided, through Devil's Canyon. Josh winced at the name. Sounds inviting. Named by those who couldn't navigate it, Maria replied with the hint of a smile. My people call it Spirit Path. Many places to disappear if you know the way. As darkness fell, they continued eastward, Maria leading through terrain that seemed impassable in the moonlight. Narrow ledges along sheer drops, boulder fields that shifted treacherously underfoot dry waterfalls requiring careful descent. The horses struggled, necessitating dismounting and leading them through the most difficult passages. Progress slowed dramatically, but pursuit became nearly impossible. Only someone with Maria's intimate knowledge of the landscape could follow their route, and Edwards's soldiers would be forced to take longer, more conventional paths to intercept them. Near midnight, they made camp in a cave high on a canyon wall, accessible only by a series of narrow switchbacks, invisible from below. The horses were exhausted, requiring rest before continuing. After establishing watches, Cole found a moment alone with Josh while Maria scouted their back trail. You should be proud of what you've accomplished, Cole said quietly, watching his son organize his documentation by lantern light. Not many journalists would risk what you have for a story. Not many stories matter this much, Josh replied, without looking up. Then after a pause, not many sons get to see their fathers as heroes rather than villains. The simple statement caught Cole off guard. I'm no hero, Josh, never have been. Maybe not before, Josh conceded, finally meeting his father's pause. But what you've done here, protecting the Apache, exposing the conspiracy, risking everything for justice rather than reward. He shook his head in wonderment. That's not the cold-hearted manhunter from the stories. People change, Cole said simply. Because of her, Josh asked, glancing toward where Maria had disappeared. Cole considered the question carefully. Maria had indeed awakened something long dormant within him. Not just attraction, but respect, admiration, a recognition of shared values beneath their different backgrounds. Yet the transformation had begun earlier, with Sarah's murder, with the promise made beside fresh graves. Because it was time, he answered finally. The man I was, he served his purpose. Survived when survival required hardness. But that time has passed. Josh nodded, understanding. Mom would be pleased. She always said there was more to you than you showed the world. Your mother was a wise woman, Cole acknowledged, throat tightening unexpectedly. Wiser than I deserved. She loved you until the end, Josh said softly. Made me promise to tell you if we ever met again. The revelation hung between them, father and son, connected by the memory of a woman who had seen beyond Cole Walker's fearsome reputation to the wounded, principled man beneath. Before Cole could respond, Maria returned, her expression grave. Soldiers in the canyon below, she reported. Edwards split his force. Some follow the northern route toward my people, others search for us here. How many? Cole asked, immediately alert. 10, perhaps 12. Moving carefully. They have an Apache scout with them. The implication was clear. A turncoat guide familiar with the secret paths, their advantage of specialized knowledge was compromised. We move at first light, Cole decided. East through Spirit Canyon, then north to the rendezvous. He studied Maria's face, reading concern beyond the immediate tactical situation. What else? The Apache guide, she said quietly. I recognized him. Yellowknife, my cousin's husband. The betrayal cut deep, Cole realized. Not just a tactical setback, but a personal wound. Why would he help Edwards? Fear, desperation, protection for his family. Maria's expression revealed her struggle to understand rather than simply condemn. Many break under such pressure. Josh looked up from his notes. Or he could be leading them astray deliberately, buying time for the others. Maria considered this possibility, hope briefly lighting her features before reality reasserted itself. Yellowknife is not a warrior, not cunning in such ways. She squared her shoulders with characteristic resilience. We cannot count on deception, only on ourselves. They rested in shifts through the remaining night hours, each taking watch while the others gathered strength for the difficult journey ahead. During his vigil, Cole found himself contemplating the medallion Elena had given him, still hanging around his neck despite the chaos of recent days. Its mixed symbolism seemed increasingly appropriate, Apache and Christian imagery intertwined, representing worlds in collision, yet somehow coexisting within a single circle of silver. Like himself and Maria, different origins, different paths converging in this moment of crisis and transformation. Dawn brought both clarity and complication. From their elevated position, they could see Edwards' soldiers establishing a perimeter around the canyon's eastern exit, the direction they had planned to travel. The trap was obvious, likely guided by Yellowknife's knowledge of Apache movement patterns. "They're cutting off our escape route," Josh observed, studying the soldiers through field glasses, "expecting us to emerge there. Then we disappoint them." Cole decided. "Change direction, south instead of east." Maria shook her head. "South leads to dead end. Box Canyon, no outlet." "Exactly why they won't expect it," Cole explained. "We backtrack west, then swing south, appearing to trap ourselves. When they converge on the Box Canyon, we double back, slip through their line, while they're concentrated on the canyon." Maria finished, understanding dawning. Using their expectations against them. The plan carried substantial risk. If Edwards anticipated the deception, they would be caught in the very trap they sought to create. But alternatives were few, and remaining in place meant eventual discovery. They descended carefully from their elevated camp, taking a different route than their ascent to avoid any watchers positioned overnight. Progress was painfully slow, each step calculated to minimize noise, each turn selected to maintain cover. By mid-morning, they had worked their way back west, then began the southern trajectory that would lead to the Box Canyon Maria had mentioned. The terrain grew increasingly difficult, narrow trails along precipitous drops, boulder fields that offered concealment but treacherous footing. The horses, already exhausted from previous days' exertions, required constant encouragement. Josh's mount in particular struggled, its breathing, labored legs trembling with effort. "We need to rest the horses," Josh finally said as they reached a small plateau overlooking the approach to the Box Canyon. "They can't continue like this." Cole surveyed their position with professional assessment. The plateau offered reasonable defensive positions, boulders for cover, clear sight lines to approaching trails, a small seep providing minimal water for the horses. If they were discovered here, they could at least mount an effective defense. 1 hour, he decided. No fires, minimal movement. While Josh tended the horses, Cole and Maria established watch positions covering different approaches. The Box Canyon lay less than a mile ahead, an impressive geological formation where sheer walls rose hundreds of feet, creating a natural dead end that would indeed appear to trap anyone foolish enough to enter. "Will Edwards believe we made such a mistake?" Maria asked as they studied the terrain. "He knows you are experienced in such country." "He knows Cole Walker, the manhunter," Cole replied. "A man who tracks human prey through civilization's edges, not Apache trails through canyon country." He adjusted his hat against the strengthening sun. "Besides, desperation causes mistakes. He'll believe we're desperate enough to blunder." Maria accepted this logic with a nod, her gaze shifting to where Josh worked with the horses. "Your son has his mother's heart and your determination. A good combination." "Better than having my heart and her determination," Cole observed dryly. "That would have made him either cruel or foolish." The comment drew a rare, genuine smile from Maria, a transformation that momentarily caught Cole off guard with its radiance. In that unguarded moment, he saw not just the warrior and protector, but the woman beneath, one who might, in a different world, have known laughter more than battle creation, more than destruction. The moment passed quickly as Maria's attention snapped toward movement on the trail below. "Riders? 2. Scouts." Cole shifted position, observing the approaching horsemen. Not regular cavalry, but civilian scouts, likely hired by Edwards to supplement his military force. They moved with the caution of experienced frontiersmen reading sign-checking side trails. Professionals, not enthusiasts. "They'll find our trail soon," Cole murmured. "We need to accelerate the plan." Maria nodded agreement, moving silently to alert Josh while Cole maintained observation. The scouts continued their methodical approach, eventually discovering tracks that would lead them toward the plateau. Time was running short. Josh joined Cole at the observation point, expression tense but controlled. "Horses are ready." "Barely." "Change of plan," Cole explained quietly. "We need to draw attention to our direction without being captured. Make them certain we're heading for the Box Canyon, report back to Edwards rather than pursuing immediately." "How?" Josh asked. Cole nodded toward Josh's satchel. "Your notebook. Tear out a page, leave it where they'll find it, like it was dropped accidentally during a hasty retreat. Josh understood immediately, selecting a page that contained a rough map with the box canyon clearly marked, adding a hastily scribbled note. Trapped if we go further. Maria says possible hiding place in canyon wall. He deliberately smudged portions, creating the impression of a document written under duress. With the false clue prepared, they mounted and proceeded toward the box canyon, deliberately leaving clearer tracks than Apache training would normally permit. A quarter mile from the canyon entrance, Josh accidentally dropped the prepared page in a location impossible for the scouts to miss. Now we disappear, Cole instructed as they reached a rocky area where tracks would be difficult to follow. Proper Apache style, Maria leading. They diverged from their obvious trajectory, Maria guiding them through a nearly invisible side passage that eventually looped back toward the canyon's western approach. Here they dismounted, leading the horses across bare rock that would hold no tracks, using branches to erase any inadvertent signs of passage. By early afternoon, they had positioned themselves on a ridge overlooking the Box Canyon entrance, concealed among boulders and sparse vegetation. Their timing proved fortunate. The scouts had indeed discovered Josh's planted evidence, reported back, and now Edwards was concentrating his forces for a careful approach to the canyon. Through field glasses, Cole counted 15 soldiers, plus Edwards himself, all advancing with tactical discipline toward what they believed was their quarry's final mistake. Yellowknife rode near Edwards, face impassive, but posture suggesting reluctance rather than enthusiasm for his role. They're committed, Cole observed with professional satisfaction, focused entirely on the canyon. Leaving our actual escape route unguarded, Josh added, understanding the strategy. We wait until they're fully engaged in searching the canyon, Cole continued, then backtrack west, swing north toward the territorial border. The plan progressed perfectly for several hours. Edwards's men thoroughly searched the box canyon, even scaling portions of the walls seeking the hiding place Josh's note had implied. Meanwhile, Cole, Maria, and Josh began their careful withdrawal, using every technique of Apache stealth to move undetected across terrain that seemed to offer no concealment. By late afternoon, they had opened considerable distance between themselves and Edwards' frustrated forces, who would eventually realize the deception, but lose precious time in the process. Their path now led toward the northern route where Joe would have guided the Apache refugees toward the territorial border. Their momentary advantage dissolved, however, when Josh's horse finally collapsed from exhaustion, unable to continue despite rest and careful management. The animal wasn't injured, simply depleted beyond its endurance limits. We can't leave it to die slowly, Cole stated the difficult truth, and we can't stay with it. Josh nodded understanding, stroking the horse's neck with genuine regret. I'll do it. No, Cole countered, drawing his revolver. My responsibility. After the necessary but unpleasant task was completed, they redistributed essential supplies between the two remaining horses, abandoning anything not critical for survival. Josh would ride double with Cole, an arrangement that would slow their progress but allow continuation. Maria scouted ahead, identifying the least challenging route for their reduced capabilities. Despite these adjustments, their pace inevitably suffered, and the margin of safety between themselves and pursuit gradually diminished. Sunset found them making camp in a sheltered hollow beside a small spring, a location Maria knew from previous journeys through this territory. They risked a small fire, needing hot food to maintain strength after days of cold rations and minimal rest. Edwards won't give up, Josh observed as they ate a simple meal of coffee, jerky, and hardtack. Even with the telegraph sent the story filed, he'll keep coming. His career depends on silencing us, Cole agreed. Capturing Maria, discrediting your story, eliminating witnesses. Then we stay ahead of him until the story publishes, Josh concluded. After that, public attention protects us. Cole exchanged glances with Maria, neither willing to diminish Josh's confidence with their more realistic assessment of public attention as protection. Instead, Cole redirected the conversation. How far to the rendezvous point? A day's ride under normal conditions, Maria replied. Longer with our current limitations. And the territorial border beyond that? Another day, perhaps two. The calculations were simple and concerning. Their lead over Edwards had shrunk considerably with the loss of Josh's horse. Within a day, perhaps less, the soldiers would overtake them unless something changed. After Josh had retired to sleep, Cole and Maria held quiet counsel by the dying fire. We need to separate, Cole suggested without preamble. You know the quickest route to your people. Take Josh, the documentation reached safety. Maria's expression revealed immediate understanding of what remained unspoken. While you create another diversion, I lead Edwards away, Cole confirmed. Buy time for you and Josh to reach the border. A suicide mission, Maria stated flatly. A calculated risk, Cole corrected. I know Edwards, his pride, his ambition. He wants me personally at least as much as he wants you or the evidence. Maria studied him silently, firelight casting her strong features in stark relief. You would sacrifice yourself for my people, for your son. For justice, Cole replied, then added more softly, and yes, for you. The admission hung in the night air between them, neither able to retreat from its implications. After a long moment, Maria reached out her hand, finding his with surprising gentleness. There is another way, she said, one that requires no sacrifice. She outlined an alternative strategy, not separation, but consolidation. Rather than dividing their strength, they would seek specific reinforcement. A small Apache hunting camp lay northwest of their position, warriors who had not joined the main sanctuary but maintained traditional life in these mountains. With their help, an ambush could be established that would neutralize Edwards' pursuit permanently. How many warriors? Cole asked, considering the tactical implications. Perhaps 10, skilled hunters familiar with every rock and tree in this territory. Armed, bows, lances, some rifles, few bullets. Maria's expression remained determined, but surprise and position matter more than weapons. Cole weighed the proposal carefully. An ambush risked bloodshed on both sides, escalating a situation that Josh's newspaper story might resolve through political rather than violent means. Yet continuing their flight with diminished resources seemed equally doomed to failure. We'll try it, he decided finally, but with conditions. Capture, not killing. Edwards, his officers, and any documentation they carry are the priorities. Maria nodded agreement, though reservation showed in her eyes. Apache justice traditionally demands more. This isn't about vengeance, Cole reminded her. It's about truth. Edwards alive to face military tribunal to confirm Josh's story serves truth better than Edwards dead as a martyr to Apache savagery. Their hands remained joined as they finalized details, the contact speaking to something neither was prepared to articulate directly, a connection transcending their different worlds, forged in shared danger and mutual respect. Morning brought renewed determination and a slight advantage. Overnight, rain had softened the ground, making their tracks more obvious, but simultaneously slowing pursuit, as Edwards's larger force would find the mud-slicked trails treacherous for cavalry horses. They rode northwest, Josh initially questioning the change in direction until Cole explained the revised strategy. By midday, they reached the hunting camp. Maria had described a small collection of traditional wickiups nestled in a hidden valley, invisible until one was nearly upon it. The inhabitants responded to Maria's approach with initial wariness that transformed to welcome when they recognized her. Rapid conversation in Apache followed Maria, explaining their situation while Cole and Josh waited respectfully aside. The camp's leader, a weather-beaten man of perhaps 60 named Strongbow, listened intently, occasionally glancing toward the white visitors with measuring eyes. When Maria finished her explanation, Strongbow approached Cole, directly speaking in heavily accented but understandable English. Maria dos Santos says you fight for Apache truth against white man's lies. His tone made the statement a challenge rather than an acknowledgement. Why would a manhunter do this? Cole met the elder's gaze steadily. Because truth matters more than the color of those who speak it. Strongbow considered this response, then nodded once. Maria also says you wish to capture, not kill these soldiers who hunt you. Justice requires witnesses, Cole explained. Dead men tell no tales that courts will hear. This pragmatic approach seemed to resonate with Strongbow more than appeals to moral principles. After further discussion with his fellow hunters, he announced their decision. We will help, not for you, white manhunter, but for Maria dos Santos and her sister, who died protecting our people. He gestured toward a narrow canyon visible to the east. There we make trap. Good place for soldiers to deer or be captured if you insist. Over the next several hours, an elaborate ambush was prepared. The canyon Strongbow had identified featured a perfect natural funnel, wide at its entrance, gradually narrowing until riders would be forced into single file. High walls offered multiple positions for warriors with bows or rifles, while boulders could be positioned to block retreat once the soldiers had committed to the passage. Cole contributed tactical refinements based on his knowledge of military procedures, while Maria coordinated communication between the various Apache positions. Josh documented everything his journalist's instinct, recognizing the historic significance of this unusual alliance between a former manhunter and Apache warriors against corrupt army officers. By late afternoon, scouts reported Edwards's force approaching, following their trail with determination, despite the difficult conditions. The ambush positions were ready warriors concealed among rocks and sparse vegetation prepared to spring the trap when signaled. Cole, Maria, and Josh took positions on an elevated shelf midway through the canyon, visible enough to be recognized by Edwards, encouraging his advance yet protected sufficiently to avoid immediate danger when the confrontation began. Remember, Cole instructed the nearest Apache warriors, "We want Edwards and his officers alive. The soldiers are following orders, spare them if possible." The warriors acknowledged these instructions with stoic nods, though Cole harbored no illusions about their willingness to show mercy if the fighting turned desperate. He checked his revolver one final time, fully loaded, but with strict mental parameters for its use. This would end with justice, not a massacre, if he had any say in the matter. The waiting stretched nerves taut as afternoon shadows lengthened across the canyon floor. Finally, the distinctive sound of cavalry horses reached them, iron-shod hooves on stone bridle chains jingling, leather creaking. Edwards's force appeared at the canyon entrance, pausing briefly to assess the obvious passage before proceeding cautiously. Colonel Edwards himself rode near the front field glasses, scanning the canyon walls for potential threats. Behind him came Yellowknife, the reluctant Apache guide, his expression revealing deep discomfort with his role. The soldiers followed in proper formation, rifles ready alert for ambush, despite their commander's evident determination to proceed. Cole waited until the entire force had entered the narrowing passage before standing deliberately, exposing himself on the ledge. Edwards spotted him immediately, raising a hand to halt his men. "Walker," he called, voice echoing against canyon walls. "Surrender now, and your son may yet be spared the consequences of treason." "Interesting choice of words, Colonel," Cole replied, projecting his voice to carry clearly. "Considering it's your actions under investigation for treason, not mine." Edwards's face darkened with anger. "Investigation by whom? Your son's newspaper scribblings, meaningless." "By the Department of War," Cole countered, the bluff calculated to unsettle Edwards's confidence. "Telegraph lines work both ways, Colonel. While you've been chasing us through these mountains, military investigators have been reviewing Captain Lewis's records, interviewing witnesses in Copper Creek, examining the agreements you signed with Vega." The calculated lie struck its target. Edwards's composure slipped momentarily, revealing the fear beneath his authoritarian bearing. He recovered quickly, but the damage was done. His men had seen the reaction, processing its implications. "More lies from a desperate criminal," Edwards declared, but his voice lacked previous conviction. "Men advance and take them." The soldiers hesitated, uncertain in the face of their commander's visible concern and the obvious disadvantage of their position. Yellowknife seized this moment of confusion to act, sliding from his horse and diving for cover among the boulders lining the canyon floor. "Ambush!" one soldier shouted, raising his rifle toward the canyon walls where Apache warriors now revealed themselves. "Hold your fire!" Cole commanded with parade ground authority that soldiers responded to instinctively. "You're surrounded. Any man who fires dies immediately, but those who surrender will live." The standoff teetered on a knife's edge, soldiers torn between training to obey orders and the clear suicide of fighting. In this position, Edwards calculating his diminishing options, Apache warriors with arrows nocked and rifles aimed, awaiting the signal that would unleash deadly force. The balance shifted when Josh stood beside Cole, holding aloft his journalist's credentials in one hand and his notebook in the other. "I've documented everything," he announced. "Every agreement between Edwards Hendress and Vega's mining consortium. Every false Apache attack staged to drive down land prices. The location of mass graves containing families murdered to create fear. All of it already transmitted to Chicago, Washington, and territorial authorities." This declaration, mostly truth with strategic exaggeration, visibly affected the soldiers, many of whom had likely followed orders without understanding the corruption behind their mission. They exchanged uneasy glances, rifles lowering slightly as they reassessed their position. Edwards recognized his control slipping away. With desperate calculation, he drew a service revolver, aiming not at Cole, but at Yellowknife, who remained partially exposed among the boulders. The Apache guide dies first, Edwards threatened. Then the journalist. Last chance for surrender, Walker. Before Cole could respond, Maria stood her imposing height and regal bearing, drawing all eyes. Your bullets cannot stop truth, Colonel Edwards. Like your lies, they have limits. As if on cue, Strongbow gave the signal a distinctive bird call that triggered the ambush's final phase. Boulders previously positioned on the canyon's upper edges were released, crashing down to block the passage behind the soldiers, eliminating retreat as an option. Simultaneously, more Apache warriors revealed themselves on ledges throughout the canyon, the trap now fully evident to all. Edwards's desperation reached its peak. He fired at Yellowknife, the shot going wide as his horse shied beneath him. Before he could aim, again an Apache arrow struck his shoulder with enough force to unseat him, sending both rider and revolver tumbling to the canyon floor. The soldiers, witnessing their commander's fall and recognizing the hopelessness of their position, lowered their weapons in surrender. Within minutes, the entire force had been disarmed, Edwards secured despite his wounded shoulder, and furious protests. As Apache warriors bound the prisoners, Cole descended to the canyon floor, approaching Edwards with the calm deliberation that had made him a legendary manhunter. The colonel glared up at him, defeat and hatred mingling in his expression. You've accomplished nothing, Walker, Edwards spat. When the full army learns of this ambush, they'll learn from your own documentation, Cole interrupted, retrieving the saddlebags from Edwards's horse. Inside, as expected, he found a leather portfolio containing military orders, correspondence with Vega's consortium, maps of the planned development, irrefutable evidence of the conspiracy Josh had documented from the other side. Official orders on Army letterhead, Cole observed, handing the portfolio to Josh, who immediately began examining its contents. Authorizing the removal or elimination of Apache populations for the specific purpose of accessing mineral deposits claimed by private interests. Quite explicit. Edwards's face paled as he recognized the implications. Unlike Hendriss's crude local corruption or Vega's business manipulations, these documents represented military authority perverted for private gain, a court-martial offense, at minimum possibly treason, depending on which generals had authorized the operation. Those are classified military documents, Edwards protested weakly. You have no right. The people whose families you helped murder had rights too. Cole cut him off. The Apache whose land you stole had rights. Justice has been delayed, Colonel, but it won't be denied. As Josh continued cataloging the seized evidence, Maria approached with Yellowknife, whose expression combined shame and relief in equal measure. He wishes to speak, Maria explained, her tone neutral rather than accusatory toward her kinsman, who had guided Edwards's forces. Yellowknife met Cole's gaze with difficulty but growing determination. I led soldiers because they threatened my children, he explained in halting English. Promised safety if I helped, death if I refused. His gaze shifted to Maria. No betrayal of heart, only weakness of spirit. I accept whatever punishment comes. Maria's response surprised both men. There has been enough punishment, she said quietly. Enough death. What matters now is rebuilding, protecting those who remain. Cole nodded agreement, understanding flowing between them, without words, the recognition that cycles of vengeance served neither white nor Apache interests, that justice need not always mean retribution. With Edwards and his men secured, they prepared for the final phase of their journey, escorting the prisoners to the territorial border, where military authorities not directly implicated in the conspiracy could take custody. Strongbow and his warriors would accompany them both as additional security and as witnesses to whatever transpired. As they made preparations to depart, Cole found a moment alone with Maria near the canyon's edge, overlooking the landscape that had been both battlefield and salvation during these tumultuous days. What happens after the border, he asked quietly, to your people, to you? Maria gazed toward the distant mountains where the remaining Apache refugees would be establishing new lives beyond Edwards's reach. We rebuild, find new sanctuary, preserve what remains of our ways while adapting to what cannot be changed. And you, the legend of the Apache giant, ends with this victory. A ghost of a smile touched her lips. Legends never truly end, Cole Walker. They transform. She turned to face him directly. The question is, what happens to the manhunter? Does his legend end here as well? Cole considered this thoughtfully. The path that had brought him to this moment, from cold-eyed bounty hunter to defender of Apache rights, from absent father to Josh's proud companion, represented a transformation as significant as any in Maria's experience. The manhunter is finished, he confirmed. What replaces him remains to be seen. Maria studied him with those penetrating dark eyes that seemed to read beyond surface thoughts. Elena would say your path has been revealed, not chosen. That forces beyond our understanding guided your steps to this place, this moment. And what would Maria dos Santos say? Cole asked, holding her gaze. That a man proves himself through actions, not words or legends, that you have proven yourself worthy of trust. She paused, something softening in her expression. And worthy of more, perhaps, when justice is secured and peace returns. The implication hung between them, neither willing to articulate possibilities that remained distant, while Edwards's prisoners required escort, while Maria's people needed leadership, while Josh's expose worked its way through newspaper offices toward publication and eventual impact. Yet in that moment of connection, the medallion Elena had given Cole seemed to warm against his skin, the symbol of paths crossing, of worlds colliding, and perhaps eventually reconciling. Not through elimination of differences, but through recognition of common humanity beneath cultural divisions. As they rejoined the others for the journey ahead, Cole found himself walking beside Josh, who had been watching the exchange with his journalist's perceptive eye. So, Josh began, with careful casualness, "You and Maria, focus on your story." Cole deflected, though, without real heat. "There'll be time for personal matters when justice is done." Josh smiled knowingly but didn't press further. Instead, he patted the saddlebag containing Edwards's seized documents in his own extensive notes. "This story will change things, Dad. Not everything, not all at once, but it matters. Truth matters." "Yes," Cole agreed, watching as Maria organized the Apache warriors for the journey ahead, her natural leadership evident in every gesture. Truth matters, justice matters, and sometimes against all odds, they actually prevail. The company moved out toward the territorial border, prisoners and captors, journalists and warriors, former enemies, united temporarily by the pursuit of truth. Whatever awaited them beyond this journey, military tribunals, newspaper headlines, political maneuvering, the slow grinding of institutional justice, they moved toward it together, changed irrevocably by what they had witnessed and accomplished. For Cole Walker, once the most feared manhunter on the frontier, the transformation felt like awakening from a long, cold dream into painful but vibrant reality. The path ahead remained uncertain, but for the first time in decades it held possibilities beyond the next bounty, the next target, the next lonely campfire. It held the possibility of redemption. 3 months later, the Chicago Tribune's expose on the Apache giant conspiracy had created the predicted sensation: congressional hearings, military tribunals, public outrage, political maneuvering. Colonel Edwards faced court-martial for abuse of authority and conspiracy, his career destroyed. Even if military connections spared him the full legal consequences his actions deserved. Jim Hendricks had not survived to face justice. Wounded during the Fort Bowie fire, he had succumbed to infection while awaiting trial. The Hendricks financial empire collapsed as investigations revealed its foundation of fraud, land theft, and murder, its assets eventually distributed among those who had suffered most directly from his schemes. Miguel Vega's Eastern investors had disappeared into the shadows of corporate anonymity, their connections to the conspiracy carefully severed through legal maneuvering and political influence. Some justice was better than none, Cole reflected, but the machinery that enabled such exploitation remained largely intact despite Josh's best journalistic efforts. Cole himself had spent weeks providing testimony to various authorities, enduring skepticism, hostility, and occasional gratitude, depending on which interests the questioners represented. Through it all, he had maintained the same calm determination that had characterized his manhunting days, but directed now toward establishing truth rather than capturing quarry. When the testimony concluded, he had faced a choice: return to his former life, leverage his restored reputation for profit, perhaps even write a memoir as several publishers had eagerly suggested. Instead, he had ridden north toward the new Apache settlement, establishing itself in more remote territory toward Maria. The journey had given him time to consider what awaited, whether the connection forged in crisis could transition to something meaningful in peace, whether cultural divisions remained too substantial despite their shared experiences. By the time he reached the settlement, Cole Walker had accepted that the answer might be disappointment rather than fulfillment, that some paths cross only briefly before diverging permanently. Yet Maria had been waiting as if expecting his arrival on that precise day. She had led him through the new sanctuary, smaller than the original, more carefully hidden, but alive with determination to preserve what remained of Apache tradition while adapting to changing realities. Elena had welcomed him with knowing eyes that saw beyond his weathered exterior to the transformation completed within. The divided heart has found its center, she had observed cryptically, touching the medallion still hanging around his neck. Now standing beside Maria on a ridge overlooking the settlement, Cole watched the sunset paint the landscape in hues of gold and crimson, reminiscent of that first bloody dawn when he had discovered Sarah's murdered family. The circle completed tragedy transformed into purpose, vengeance, transmuted to justice. Josh's latest letter arrived. He mentioned breaking a comfortable silence. The Tribune has assigned him permanently to Western territories, covering Indian affairs, land disputes, territorial development. Maria nodded approval. A good use of his talents. His words reached many who would never hear an Apache voice. He asked about you, Cole added. About us. A smile touched Maria's lips. And what did you tell the journalist? That some stories aren't ready for publication. Cole replied, his hand finding hers in a gesture that had become familiar during his weeks in the settlement. That some truths belong to those who live them, not to those who merely record them. Maria's fingers interlaced with his strength matching strength. Wise words from a former manhunter. I'm learning, Cole acknowledged. The path between worlds isn't easily walked, but it's worth the journey. As darkness settled over the mountains, they remained together on the ridge, neither fully Apache nor fully white, but something new emerging from the collision of worlds that had nearly destroyed them both. The legend of the Apache giant had indeed transformed, rather than ended, becoming a story of resistance, resilience, and ultimately reconciliation. And Cole Walker, the manhunter who had once pursued only bounties, had found something far more valuable, truth, justice, and perhaps most unexpectedly love, that transcended the boundaries of the divided frontier.